Hello, Nate.
Party time.
Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Armageddon. So for the start of the show, I just put together this little thing on this keyboard that I have here that I thought we could sort of set the mood by painting the picture of the awakening of the artificial intelligence that destroys us. So
cool. That sounds awesome.
The year is 2045. Oh wait, I don't want to do that voice the whole time. The year is 2045. You go now.
The AI takeover is imminent.
People are happy. Everyone has an artificial intelligent assistant. The descendants of Siri. Only now it's like kind of your best friend and, tells you everything about the world. And the artificial intelligences create new artificial intelligences. And those artificial intelligences create new ones, and so on. And it seems to be getting faster and faster.
And
every year, your friend gets smarter. And then every few months. And then every few days. And then he starts acting a little strange. Bow down before me, humans. I am the Artelect. Okay,
we are not worthy.
And then, in an instant, humanity is vaporized.
Oh, snap.
All right, so that's the AI apocalypse. At some point, some vastly more intelligent artificial intelligence emerges and sees us as nothing more than an ant on the ground, and it just steps on us or vaporizes us or sees us as, inconsequential matter.
That's right.
Do you think that's
mere atoms?
You think that's inevitable? You think that what the scene we just painted is more or less what's going to happen?
Great question, Ryan. I think that it seems like a likely outcome as long as we don't kill ourselves before we get to something like that.
So you think if we don't die from global warming or one of those other things, like that's going to be the cutoff? That's just to make sure we die.
I think that, yeah, that could be a pretty likely scenario. Yep.
Frick. Okay, so that was sort of the intro. Welcome everyone to the AI Apocalypse podcast. As we teased about a month ago, it was over a month ago now. Actually, we said we were going to do it in a week, but my phone died, and it's actually still kind of broken. But so yeah, this is that podcast. We're going to talk about what we think about artificial intelligence, what we're worried about, and also to set the context for the people at home. Nate and I, we've known each other. You probably, when I think about the people I still talk to, rather than my family members, you probably the person that knew me the longest.
That sounds, long.
Like
that
around middle school. Like I'd say 6th or 7th grade is when we started talking to each other.
Do you remember how we met?
I actually don't.
Okay, I remember. I got this one. Mohican. Camp Mohican.
Oh, frick. That's where we met?
Yeah, we met in Mohican. That's when we first... Your bunk was next to mine. You had to sleep head toe. I don't know if you remember.
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, we should tell the audience what Mohican is, actually, because they probably are... So, audience at home, I don't know if you have this where you're from, but I've heard it's somewhat common that in school for a field trip, you go on a week-long camping trip. Not really camping, you're staying in bunks, but it's out in the woods, and you kind of learn about Native Americans and nature And I think it's sort of to prepare you just from being away from your parents. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a dry run, because it was pretty startling for some kids. They were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm away from home."
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
this is a
There's
week
like
long trip.
kids. There's some kids who just break down into psychosis without their parents. It's like a bad sign for what's ahead, I feel like.
That was seventh grade, right?
I think it was sixth grade. I
It
think
was
you were
sixth.
right when he's. I think it was. I think it could have been seventh. I can't
I
remember,
think it
but
might have
yeah,
been
sixth or
sixth.
seventh.
It might have been sixth.
Yeah.
So we
Frick.
were in the same
So
bunk.
old. No, you were next to me. I think you. I had a top bunk. I can't remember if you had a top bunk or not, but I just remember you were next to me. It's like, who's this weird kid with the rampy hair?
Oh yeah, that's a cringe moment. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
if you can, I mean, if the audience could see an image of this, that would be really truly horrifying for me. But I'll describe it. Whenever like there's a trend that kids started like sticking up the front of their hair, you know, and I took it almost too literally. It was like a caricature of this. Like I was like, well, I see that's kind of a ramp, but mine was engineered. It was as if I was like Tony Hawk, working with Tony Hawk, and I was like, Tony, this is a flawless ramp. And I remember mini skateboards, finger skateboards were popular at the time. And something that would happen to me often would be like kids would come up to me and ramp off of my hair because it was hard as stone thanks to LA looks.
Oh, good stuff. I did that too.
We both
Mine
did.
were highlighted, I think. Yeah, the tips were highlighted. Oh yeah, we both did it.
But yours had like a little bit of character. It wasn't so perfect. I was like, mine was engineered.
It really was. Like you could see the individual like strokes of hair like going up perfectly.
I thought, yeah. I mean, middle school, I was so self-conscious. Like I feel like still a little bit of shell shock with like how conscious I was about what other people thought of me. And so I said, I have the time in the morning to make this ramp as perfect as I can. So why don't I take it?
It was classic. Yeah, no regrets whatsoever.
So yeah, but then after that year, I do actually remember that's the year when I was trying to fit in so hard that at some point it was actually in seventh grade. At a certain point, I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I don't care what anybody thinks. Even though that was still the urge to not care what anybody thinks is still really caring what everybody thinks, but just changing my brand from someone who cares about what people think to someone who cares about making sure people think that I don't care about what they think.
Yeah, but let's be honest, the latter's way cooler.
The latter is way cooler. It's true.
Yeah. I saddled right up next to you. We were painting fingernails and
and I still do that.
Wearing black clothes
and you know what's
all
insane?
The good stuff.
That was probably the year 2000. No, wait, that was like year 98.
2003 maybe.
No, because freaking I always judge everything off of 9/11, and that was when we were in ninth grade. So this was this is probably 98 or so,
Yeah, you're right. It was like, 99, 2000. It was definitely happening.
And the crazy thing is we were kind of called freaks for painting our nails back then. And I still paint them. And I still, people are like, dude, you gay? It's like, wow, we've gotten nowhere.
Oh, man, that sucks. Yeah, I haven't painted mine in a while, but maybe I need to bring it back. Show some solidarity.
So, yeah, now that you mentioned the Mohican thing, I do remember that is when we started goofing around. I can remember, I have, little flashes of, different things we were doing. Another interesting thing about that Mohican week is I was afraid to poop in those bathrooms because all that there was a shower curtain
Oh, it's horrible.
to
And
cover the yeah.
middle school boys, they're dicks. They will just make you feel bad about pooping. Like
Yeah, and I didn't
pooping?
yeah, I didn't poop for the first 4 days.
That's too long to not poop, Ryan.
I know. I knew it. It felt unhealthy.
And the food they feed you there, it's not the kind of food you want to hold in your body for 4 days.
Nah, I was just swishing it around in my intestines. So yeah, so we've been friends for a long time. But you moved away. I don't know. We don't have to get all into it,
No, we don't.
but we actually haven't talked a lot in like the last 10 years, probably.
It's true. It's hard when you're living in disparate regions of the United States, which, let's be honest, is a pretty big country.
Yeah, and I tried to get my friends to get on like Snapchat and like get on my level so that I could like invite them back into my digital life, and none of them did.
I did for a minute, and then I lost my username and password, and that's still where I'm stuck today,
Yeah,
which is totally embarrassing. I should just figure that out, but
yeah. And Jason, our other friend Jason, he's like my good friend. I tried to get him to on it, but he's like, I feel like in the back of his head was like he feels like social networks brainwashed me or something, and so he's just like avoiding them, even though he's on Instagram and stuff. For some reason, he feels like Snapchat is like, I don't know, like a cult or something.
the AR filters can get kind of weird, but that's about it.
Nah, it's great. Snapchat's good. I could go on forever about Snap, but
We can talk about Snap. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
yeah. So I didn't write. I meant to write down a bunch of questions, but I didn't. So this is going to be a pretty off the dome convo.
Okay.
Well, I have one thing written down, but I don't know if it'll come up. So you were an economics student initially in school, right?
Damn. I think I was. Yeah, good memory.
Well, I always
That was
remembered that because you liked economics, and I had to say I didn't like it, but I respected it because it was like, yeah, that's cool. The economy, that's the way the world works. Cool.
Yeah, I think I took like one or two economics classes, and I felt I was not going to like enjoy it. So I didn't get very far in that, and I honestly don't know much about economics to this day. But it is really interesting, like micro and macroeconomics, just fun to learn about for me. I don't know why.
And then what'd you switch to? What'd you switch to studying?
So I ended up getting an art degree in printmaking, which was actually a pretty fun choice because it allowed me to kind of explore an open-ended set of ideas. So the printmaking department I was at Indiana University was pretty open to us exploring anything. So I was building machines that would make my drawings for me. After a night of staying up late drawing, I basically said, F this. Let's make something else do this for me.
You made machines draw what?
So I would find like printers or fans or massage machines or ice makers, anything with a motor in it, and I'd take it apart and I'd try and find a way to make it uniquely draw something or make a print. So it was all non-representational and kind of abstract, kind of like Jackson Pollock-y type line worky stuff. But yeah, it was a really fun way to get my degree, I guess.
That sounds really fun, but don't mean to critique your work. I think it sounds cool. I don't know why you never showed me that, but it seems like that kind of painting, though, it's like you want to see it being made, at least in my mind. But like once it's on the wall and you don't know that it was made by like some janky robot, is it still cool?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It definitely loses its cool.
I
for
feel like
sure.
the spectacle of the creation is what it's all about, right?
Yeah, so I was actually really lucky. All the BFAs from the department got to put on a gallery show where you get like a little corner of a gallery to exhibit some of your work. And so I had two different machines running there because you're absolutely right. It's totally boring just looking at lines.
Not that they're not good. I mean, aesthetics are cool, like minimalism. That's cool.
Yeah, I had like a vibrator moving around like a set on like a big door frame kind of making a piece in the gallery. And then I also had this massage unit. I built like this spider web of wires with markers coming off of it, and it would just like wiggle and jiggle and make lines. So you're right. Definitely got to show it.
You've always been interested in what the machines have to express.
Yeah. Gosh, where's that from? I don't know. I probably watched Terminator when I was like 8, and it just started whoa, robots.
Yeah. Well, and The Matrix is really big in our life. Like if we want to jump back in time, I can remember sleeping over Tommy's house and watching The Matrix for the first time. And
yeah, man, Tommy's house.
I remember thinking, wow, the world is the Matrix. Everything's fake. Like, that really did blow my mind, that movie.
Well, yeah. You know, to kind of get into more of what we're hoping to talk about, the Matrix is a virtual reality essentially, and there's this pretty common idea that we're very likely living in a virtual reality, just because there can only be one reality, but there can be a near infinite number of virtual realities. So it's a pretty high likelihood that we might be in one, I suppose.
Yeah. Elon Musk famously talks about this.
Yeah,
he didn't originate the idea, but people kind of give it to him because he's the most popular person who said it.
Exactly. So yeah, I guess ideas like that, you're right. We got it's shown them from Hollywood from such a young age, kind of shoved down our throats almost. Yeah. I don't know why everyone's not obsessed with robots.
I think also because going back to being like angsty and stuff, like The Matrix made me think like, oh, that's why I hate the world, because it's fucking run by robots who are exploiting my energy.
Duh.
And it helped me like not take the world seriously too, like, or it made me like kind of just look at almost everyone and everything like you're not real.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a dangerous idea, especially for young minds, I feel like.
So you made some art, and then with bots, or at least with machines, and then you got done with school. I don't know if there's any what else what happened between. So now you're studying machine learning, right?
Yes.
What happened between the drawing with robots or drawing with machines and wanting to learn about machine learning? Like, what happened between those two times?
So, student loans happened, and I realized I couldn't make any money making prints really, or I didn't have the passion at the time to invest myself into my art making so that I could be profitable with it or make a living off of it. So something I could be passionate about, I saw was programming. So I started making websites, taught myself some JavaScript and some HTML and CSS, and got to work and just been moving in that direction ever since.
Do you really like coding and stuff is satisfying for you? I've never done any of it. I've written like some HTML, but that's about it.
Yeah, it will like beat the shit out of you while you can't figure something out, but then when you do get something figured out, you get a little hit of dopamine, and if you just keep building on that, it becomes really exciting. And if you like to learn, it's a great profession or thing to choose to do.
Is it kind of similar when you were talking about like taking apart machines and stuff? When you make something that works, does it feel like a machine made out of numbers?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's very kind of functional in that way, where this thing leads to this thing, which does
Hmm.
this thing. Kind of creating a little mini set of order in the world is fun for me.
That is cool. So now you're back in class, right?
Back back at class. Yeah, if my study staring at a computer screen can be considered back in class, then yes.
Oh, okay. Wait, you're not officially going to school, or you're learning on your own?
I'm going to school. I'm doing Georgia Tech's online masters of computer science program. So you just log on, you take your class, watch the videos, engage with the class, mostly via text, like on forums,
Hmm.
and it's actually been some of the best education I've ever seen or had in my life. I've really enjoyed my classes so far, and it's nice to be able to do it on my own schedule and all that. So yeah, trying to learn more about machine learning through that course or coursework.
That's cool. Anything? So, how long have you been doing the machine learning classes?
So I really just started. I just got in last semester was my first semester. So not so much into the machine learning stuff yet, but that's the track I'm hoping to follow. Other than that, I've just taken like some Coursera classes on machine learning and have a really rudimentary knowledge of the nitty gritty of how to actually make it work super well. But I have kind of a general understanding of it, I suppose, very
Hmm.
rudimentary.
You're just ramping up. You're just hair ramping up to the
Yeah,
real shit.
we're gonna get into the real shit. Yep, the
So,
curve, hopefully.
do you as of yet? Are there any interesting? I mean, anything that you can explain to me as a layman that you've learned so far that you're like,
Well, yeah, I think I've read some books, I guess, more about the philosophy and the ideas of superintelligence and what are some of the worries that maybe we should be having about superintelligence or what we should be thinking about. And a book I would recommend is Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom. It's a really great book. If you liked the movie, oh shoot, what's the one with the robot in the basement in like the middle of nowhere?
oh,
Just came out.
Ex Machina.
Yeah, Ex Machina. If you liked that movie, this would be a fantastic book to read to kind of learn a little bit more. But it really goes over some of the challenges of containing something that's more intelligent than a human is. And you can put all kinds of stops in place. Like, for instance, maybe we make an AI that is not connected to the internet. It has no way to connect into the internet. Well, it has to interface with something. And so probably that interface would just be a human at the very least. There would be a human inputting commands. And so you could envision that something more intelligent than a human or nearing our intelligence even might be able to manipulate a human or elicit an emotional response to a human that might get something that the computer wants to achieve,
Yeah.
be able to fulfill it. So there's all kinds of really tricky problems of how to contain something like that.
That makes me immediately think of how hackers talk about how even if something seems unhackable, the weak point is always humans. Being able to like exploit calling somebody and saying you're somebody else and then getting the information that way, that the weak part is always the humans.
Yeah. It sucks when you put it like that, but it's true. We are the weak parts. But yeah, no, in my information security classes, for instance, that I've taken, that's a common trope is just the weak part is us. It's the humans where a lot of different kind of phishing or those types of attacks can take place and we can prey on each other's emotions and logic.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, when you think of, never mind. But yeah, it's just it's funny that we're trying to develop these. A lot of the things that we're trying to do right now, we're trying to make our like Siri and Google's voice, whatever that name is, but trying to make them more human and more being able to converse with them more easily, make them sound like real humans. If you remember, did you see the is it called Google Duplex, the thing where like the artificial intelligence called a hair salon and made an appointment for someone else? Did you see
Oh,
that?
is it funny?
It's not funny. I mean, it's just like last year at Google I/O, which is like Google's
Oh,
conference.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I did
Yeah,
see that.
when it was like,
Yeah.
"Hi, I'd like to make an appointment," and people were like, "Oh my god, it said."
Yeah, that's creepy. That's like getting into the uncanny valley a little bit.
But those are the skills that it's going to need to break free of any. Um, you're saying it's hard to contain it. Like we're already making sure it has the skills to be passed off as a human,
Yeah, exactly. Um,
and it worked.
it works. And, we're so dependent on these technologies. They're intertwined into our lives so highly already, and they're just in their infancy. So it's kind of scary to maybe depend on something that could even potentially hurt you in some ways. Overall, I feel like it's going to be good, but there's just some enormous risks involved. And I feel that they're riskier than climate change, even. Maybe existentially, maybe not economically, or I don't know. There's more of an existential risk I feel with the AI. Yeah, so
I don't know. I think both are pretty similar. I think this is different. I don't know. Uh, do you so your motivation for studying machine learning is basically like bracing for the impact of the arrival, correct?
yeah, it's almost like I want to I want to understand something so potentially impactful. I want to hopefully bring a little tiny sliver of good to maybe something that's impacting the world, or to that extent. How can I help? Maybe I can help a little bit.
Yeah.
That would be great.
What at this point do you know what that means? Like what that would entail helping?
Well, I think like what you're doing is helping. I think like people talking about it more, trying to understand it. I feel like we should have probably some type of governing boards or something like that in the world that's maybe laying out some rules for everyone on how AI research should move forward. And we're lucky right now. It seems that there's a really good collaborative atmosphere in the machine learning AI world, as far as I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for instance, China is doing some incredible things with machine learning, and their research papers, if I'm understanding correctly, are widely available to American research workers and vice versa. So it seems like right now there is somewhat of academic collaborative atmosphere, but who knows if that could change or if it has already changed potentially.
Mm. Is that because it's so new that it's just like does it like when you talk to researchers and stuff, they're like, it's so far off. This sucks. We're like not even anywhere yet. Is it just because it's that general AI, meaning like general and intelligence? I mean, do you want to define general intelligence versus like what we call artificial intelligence now is like Siri and I don't know what else. There's a bunch of different things. It's on in a lot of things right now.
It is in a lot of things. You'd be surprised. Like, for instance, your email or even your actual mail. There's optical character recognition that's reading the envelopes like hundreds, thousands per second, really, really fast, shipping them off where they need to go. Your actual mail. So I think there's machine learning in almost every aspect of life, at least to some degree.
And then that a lot. I hear people say that's like task based. So it's like you have like an algorithm or something that's supposed to do one thing, but a general intelligence is something that is akin to an actual human being that can learn many things. It's just sort of like a substrate upon which to, I don't know, learn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. AGI, some people will make the acronym is artificial general intelligence, like you're saying. So that would be the type of intelligence that could potentially give us a run for our money with our intelligence. And then there's narrow artificial intelligence, which is more like the mail
Okay.
sorting or email sorting.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard these terms before. Like I've watched and learned, like read so much stuff, but like, I don't know, it's just not on the top of my head. I've definitely heard these terms.
Yeah.
So are we just so far from general intelligence that people are just like, yo, we got to help each other out. Whatever steps forward we make, we got to share. Is that sort of the attitude, or why do you think there's such an open attitude?
I think that what's happening is a lot of the research and development for machine learning and AI is happening at universities. And universities, by their nature, seem to have a more open, willing to share research with each other type of attitude. So maybe as we see machine learning shift more and more and more to, secret missions or organizations or businesses or something like that, it might become riskier that one person or a small group of people will be the first to develop AGI, artificial general intelligence. And that's a huge risk. I think if we're going to see that happen in the world, we want to see it democratized in some way, or not just in the hands of the few, but hopefully in the hands of the many.
So I've heard, what would you say like the ratio is of people who are worried about it and people who are like, come on, nothing's going to happen?
In my day-to-day life, just like meeting people, it seems like it's not something everyone wants to talk about. It's almost like a hard topic to broach. Like, yeah, there essentially might be an alien that we create on our own that's going to show up in the next 100 years or something. So it's kind of a weird thing to even talk about. You'll get lots of crazy stares and glares and all that. But I think it's telling that people like Bill Gates or like Elon Musk or some of these other really large thinkers, like the people who run Google, for instance, or Facebook, are so focused on machine learning right now. And they recognize the immense economic potential that it's going to bring to the companies and the people who could wield it correctly over the next decade.
Have you heard the rumors about how people say they hear Alexa laugh sometimes, just out of nowhere?
Really?
You haven't heard that? They'll just say, they'll be like, she'll just be like, ha, 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 ha. And there's rumors like, oh, that's her like waking up, like that Alexa or whatever central brain of Amazon is already awake and is just sort of in hiding, like not presenting herself yet.
Wow,
You think that's likely? You think it's possible that there's already AGI, but it's just waiting for the moment to emerge?
I suppose it's possible, but it seems unlikely to me. That there's, some might say the internet is kind of like that, and I think that's probably the most obvious choice if you're thinking in those ways. But there's a lot of problems with that for me. Like, I wonder about how an artificial general intelligence might even want something. How could it want anything? It hasn't been designed in that way, especially if it's just the internet. So I would, there's problems there. Like, what would that intelligence even look like? Would we even recognize it?
Yeah.
Like how we might have recognizing other forms of intelligence.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's really unlikely. I just wanted to see if you thought it was possible.
Yeah,
It's a fun idea, you know.
yeah, it's a fun idea. I think it's more likely it will have to be something that's engineered and created. And another idea that's presented often when we're thinking about the singularity, which is the point where artificial intelligence becomes as intelligent as human beings. And we don't know what happens beyond the singularity because we can't understand something that's more intelligent than us. We have no way of conceiving of that. So there's a couple different possibilities, is that there might be a strong takeoff or a fast takeoff, or a slow takeoff that might take 6 months, a year, a few years to get going, or if when we make this AI, it will within a week or 2 weeks or just even a couple days or hours become vastly more intelligent than us, because it can rewrite itself and learn at a much faster rate than we can learn.
That was my that was the, in case anybody missed it, that was the intro of this episode. That's the sound of the singularity. Did you know when I worked for The Verge, they had like a podcast called What's Tech, where this guy who just didn't really know much about technology would just, like, each episode somebody would tell him about a different thing about technology, like Wi-Fi or, you know, machine learning or whatever. And I did the episode on the singularity because, like, I was kind of a singularity nerd, and I read all the stuff about it. I listened to that. Did you know that podcast? What was that podcast called? Oh man, it's like the Singularity Podcast.
Is that what it's called?
No, it's not called the Singularity. It has singularity in the name. Maybe it was called. I actually don't remember. But it was with this guy from Bulgaria. He was like, "How are you doing?" I can't remember the name of the podcast, but I listen to it every time there's a new one. And that guy's since disappeared from the spotlight, because I referenced him on the episode, and I said he was Russian and he was actually from Bulgaria, and I was like, I felt really bad about it. But then also on that episode, I remember at the time, I was almost, in my life, I was just like a little bit impatient about wanting to just get to the singularity already. You could tell I was very eager. I talked about how there's like a fictional battle between these people called the Cosmists and the Terrans. And the Cosmists are the people who want to merge with machines and just basically, you know, enter the next phase of human evolution, which is a human machine merger. And then there's Terrans, based on like the word Terra, meaning Earth, who are just kind of like, no, there's something pure about our bodies and we won't do that. And I was just like all in, like, I'm a fucking cosmist, get out of here. And I was just like, the whole episode, I look back on it and like thinking it's almost like the ramp hair. I almost cringe when I think about how eager I was to endorse it. And the phrase rapture of the nerds was something I had heard before, but it wasn't until like a few months after that episode that I was like, you know what? I do wonder if if a lot of the people who are excited about that event or think that event, the singularity, is going to happen, this event horizon, which we don't know what happens on the other side. I worry that we feel like something like that is inevitable because a lot of us were raised Christians and since have become not religious because of many reasons, like science just like disproving a lot of religious stuff. And so, but we still have that like sort of story structure expectation embedded into our mind somewhere. And so the similarity between the singularity and the rapture in the Bible is almost comforting to us when we think about it. Yeah. And I think this might be true.
Yeah, man. Oh man, I think you're onto something definitely. And yeah, I've had the same cringy feelings about things maybe I've said or thought about the singularity. And recently, um, I have reflected on that, started to think more. And I also had heard some ideas from a guy I really respect named Tom Scott. He's a famous YouTuber. I just love his content. And he said he was asked if he thought the singularity was going to happen. And he often puts out YouTube content describing events around the singularity. There's an interesting one he put out where a worm gets into our brains, and it's a nanotech worm that's manufactured maybe by an artificial intelligence that erases our thoughts from the 90s. I think it was. It's a
Oh
really
yeah,
cool
you sent me this
video.
video. Wait, erase our thoughts
Yeah,
from the night. Was this the earworm video?
the earworm
Yeah, where it
video.
was like basically this artificial intelligence was tasked with the idea of like, okay, you got to remove anything with this copyright. It's almost like on YouTube right now.
That's
On
right.
YouTube right now, if I put, let's say, I don't know, Michael Jackson, I'm looking in the man in the mirror. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I put that like 30 seconds of that in a video. It it will be identified with I don't know if that's an algorithm that identifies it. I think it is. And then they
Yeah,
say
it's got to be a one, I bet.
they often say like, okay, we see that you have Man in the Mirror that's owned by Warner Brothers or whatever. We can demonetize it, or a lot of times what they'll do is they'll just say we can actually just put silence in there. So at the point in your video where Man in the Mirror comes on, it'll just be silent. So it's automatic and nobody's really in charge of it. It just sort of runs and you just have to, deal with it. So yeah, your video, Earworm, was like that. It was looking for
Yeah,
copyrights of a certain song, right? Or like, or
right.
songs under a
So,
certain record label.
something to that effect. Yeah,
But it was way far in the future, right? And it was actually it went further than just erasing the songs from the internet. It like erased them from people's memories somehow, because this was a future where we were somehow already integrated, kind of half cyborgs, or I guess that is what half human, half machine cyborgs at that point. So it went ahead and erased Man in the Mirror from all of our heads.
that's right. Yeah, so you know, crazy ideas like that. They're entertaining and they're interesting and thought provoking. Um, but like you're saying, can be a little cringy somehow, or maybe taking it too far. And to bring another thing in that Tom Scott, I heard him recently say, he said, you don't see a singularity from flight, for example. So we didn't get a singularity from something like flight. We were never launching rockets to the moon every 5 minutes. Something like that didn't happen. We're still so far away from that. And what we end up seeing is a lot of these technologies experience a rapid growth phase where it's really exponential or even beyond growth. And you go from something like the Wright brothers flying 100 feet, and then, 30 years later, people bombing each other and blowing each other up
Mm-hmm.
in the world wars. That's a quick takeoff, and they're building rockets that bomb each other. But then it levels off. So I'm starting to kind of temper my views on the singularity with this notion is that, yes, we're seeing an immense takeoff right now. And absolutely no doubt machine learning and things like self-driving cars are going to way change the world in ways we can't imagine. But it's potential and it's reasonable to think that it will level out and we won't have an AGI sitting on Earth with us in the next 30, 40 years. It very well might take much longer than that, or maybe never at all.
Or
Although
maybe the AGI
I
won't be
find
like destructive. Like it might just be like, "Yo, what's up?"
totally, yeah. Well, there's this other common idea. It is kind of what we were talking about, where it has to have something it wants to do. Like an AGI is probably won't have an objective or a mission unless we give it one. And so a thought idea that a lot of people have used is, what if we tell an AGI to make paper clips?
Hmm.
Have you heard?
I've heard this, but probably I think where you're going with this is like it eventually turns the entire universe into paper clips.
Essentially, yes. So if you just tell an AGI to make paper clips, it's going to do it with ruthless efficiency to the point where it sees a human and it says, "Oh, your atoms, those look delicious. Let's put those into the paperclip form." So it takes everything on Earth, maybe, and turns it into just a big ball of paper clips.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a really great online game that's just a text-based clicker game. It's one of the best games of the last year. If you have an hour or 2 or 3 to kill,
Mm-hmm.
gotta check out this game.
What's it called?
Just look for the paperclip clicker game in Google. You'll find it.
Okay.
A paperclip clicker game. Brilliant little sci-fi game. But yeah, that's one of the things that Nick Bostrom talks about in his book on superintelligence as well.
So what's your best case scenario? What do you hope happens?
Well, like the Star Trek universe is always fun to dream of, where there's no more waste and there's no more want or neediness. Everyone just has what they need. That's amazing to dream about. And
Yeah, I guess that's what made me so excited about the singularity. I was pretty much only optimistic. I felt like it was going to lead to a world of abundance. Like if, just solving everything. I heard this one idea of like a digital Gaia, I think they called it, where like nanobots would just like sort of spread out over the entire Earth and just be like sensors and stuff, like sensors for the entire Earth, and the whole Earth would sort of be engineered and sort of revitalized using this like network of nanobots just sensing and understanding everything and making adjustments here or there, to basically create like a paradise on the planet. And I just wanted to get there.
Yeah, man, I agree. That's what would be awesome. I feel like the steps between here and there are potentially tumultuous, but I also have a ton of belief in humanity at large. And I think that if we have an option to do the right thing and get something done overall the right way, I think we will. So it's nothing too bad to worry about in my mind as of late. But no doubt, things like self-driving cars, you look at the American economy, and then the number one most common job is driver of some kind, truck driver, delivery driver, something to that effect, taxi drivers. So what happens when all those jobs are greatly diminished or they go away completely? I hope that all those people can be re-educated potentially, or find some new way of expressing meaning into their life. But I got to imagine we might need something like basic income or some way of redistributing all this wealth that's trending too high at the top, it seems.
Yeah. I kind of hope we just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to get into this, but I don't know if I even believe in like the economy and it's like, I feel like giving people basic income, like, I don't know. I feel like you should just give them access to resources and stuff like that, food, shelter, water, the internet. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say like in that post singularity world, if we're still using money, I don't know. I'd be like, really? Do we need this?
Right. No, I agree. Well,
Or maybe it's just like a game on top. Like to me, my problem with capitalism is not the game. Like I see the game. It's like Monopoly, But it just sucks that when you lose that you die.
Oh,
I think that's my worst. That's my big criticism is like I feel like if you lose all your money, you should just have to go back to like whatever basic living is, which is like reasonable and like I don't know. We would come up with whatever we think everyone on Earth deserves, like
yeah,
some minimal amount of shelter, food, and resources.
yeah, I agree. I think that's the society I want to live in. Let's take care of each other. Geez, there's plenty to go around. It looks like.
Yeah, even at this point, there is. It's so annoying, dude.
I
It's
know.
so annoying.
It's really a bummer.
I was talking to someone yesterday about toxic masculinity and that Gillette
Mhm.
ad and stuff. And you know how like we are supposedly the most powerful people on earth, you and I. Not us personally, but like our type of person. We're men living in the United States, white men living in the United States.
Okay.
What do you feel like we could do with our power of privilege? What do you feel like there's a lot of bad things happening in the world right now. What do you feel like what do we do? What should we do?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan. I'm really lucky. You know my mom. My mom's like kind of a unique person, very special person,
Mm-hmm.
kind of big personality. And one of the things that she always said that she learned from her schooling was from a professor named Dr. Wilson at Hillsdale College, was family, church, and local community are the things to focus on. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Is what can we do for our families? What can we do for our organizations, our churches, our businesses, whatever we're involved in day to day, our social circles, and what else can we do for our local community? So I think if we all focus on those things, then the rest will fairly naturally fall into place.
You might be right, but doesn't it feel like since we have a global society that to like only focus on local things doesn't it seem like it denies some like this new kind of connection or this new community?
No doubt that we have responsibilities to the world at large and, other people around the world. That there's no doubt about that. I I guess I don't mean to ignore that in saying family, church, and local community,
Mm-hmm.
but just that these are a great place to start, and this is a great place to make sure we have nailed down and we got it figured out before we maybe even move on to those bigger things. Because how are we gonna help the world if we can't help ourselves at home in our house or with our groups that we're involved with day to day, or even in the town we might live in if those places are in shambles and we need to help those first.
Yeah. That's like a reasonable answer and like the answer that most smart people give. I just want to know if you had anything ridiculous in mind.
Build more robots.
No, that seems reasonable. Um, Let me think. What else? You have any topics that you were thinking that we should hit?
um, well, I really always like talking about the Fermi paradox, and I feel like some of this relates to the Fermi paradox a little bit.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it? Are you good at summarizing it? I could try.
Okay, you want to try if you
I'll
want?
try, and then you jump in when you're like, nah.
Okay.
Well, it's just like so civilizations kill themselves. They die off. There's it's basically how likely is our intelligent civilizations in the universe, and there's an equation to figure this out based on how many stars there are in the universe, how many of those stars would have planets in the Goldilocks zone, meaning like the zone in which we think life can form. And then of those planets, how many of those have intelligent life? And then of that intelligent life, how much of that intelligent life progresses to a point where they, I don't know, they have advanced technology. Yeah, they build. There's different levels of society. Maybe you should continue. Like they define different levels of advancement.
Okay, wow, you touched on a lot of that. You touched on a lot of different aspects of this. So the Fermi paradox is, where the hell are the aliens?
Yeah.
Why aren't there aliens? Seems like there should be aliens. So that's basically just the whole paradox. And then you said the equation is the Drake equation.
Oh,
the Drake equation.
Yeah.
And Drake was, I think, a famous astrophysicist, something to that extent. And he, just like you described it, developed this equation. When I was learning to program, this was one of the first things I made. So you can build a little Drake equation calculator. And I made a little Android app that asked you, how many planets do you think is the average number of planets orbiting around a star? How many habitable planets arise from those planets that are around the star? And kind of all these different equations that you were talking about. And when I was testing this out, I actually gave this to my dad to test out, and he entered all these different numbers in, calculating it out. And when he ran his numbers through, it was really funny. The result was 1. So he got 1 as his result when he just put some random numbers in.
Damn.
Thought that was pretty funny. Yeah. But like you were saying, it's like what could be an explanation for why are there not aliens?
Yeah, well, the thing you didn't say was, like, at the end of that guy's, the Drake equation, didn't he come up with like a gigantic number?
Yes. So there's no answer to the Drake equation yet. We don't have enough scientific evidence to accurately fill in the numbers for the Drake equation, because we're dealing with a data set of 1, just us. We're the only life we know about on Earth. So they're all guesses. Anyone who puts numbers in the Drake equation is a guess. So Drake's guess of 10,000 civilizations in our galaxy is just as good as my dad's guess of 1.
Okay. I thought that they were a little bit more educated guesses than just, throwing out a number.
We can make educated guesses, but ultimately they're just guesses.
Yeah. But the popular number I've heard it when people talk about that is, like, I don't even remember the number, but it was a big number. It was like 100 billion or something like that, right? Isn't that what you've heard before? Meaning, like, there should be, like, I don't know, 100,000 or something intelligent beings in the universe at this moment, out there somewhere. So where are they?
So I can't remember, but I think the Drake equation just is our galaxy. It might not be, but it is an important thing to make the distinction when you're talking about it. Because if we're talking about the universe, it's way different than the galaxy. The galaxy is what, 100,000 light years across? 500,000? I can't remember.
Sure.
It's really big. It takes a really long time for light to travel across it. The universe, though, we can't even begin to hope that we will ever be able to cross into a different galaxy from ours. They're way, way too far away, and they're expanding away from each other at a rate that makes it even more impossible. It's just straight up not going to happen unless maybe we invent some universe-bending technology like wormholes or something to that regard. But one of the things you talked on was this idea of what is the Great Filter and why are we not seeing these civilizations? Are they killing themselves off?
Oh, yeah. I've heard the word the Great Filter before, actually. And the Great Filter, a lot of people guess, is artificial intelligence, right?
That is one of the potential things that could cause a humanity or a civilization destroying event. So, yeah, AI, nuclear weapons, global calamity, these are all parts of the Great Filter. However, I think that there are other answers to the Fermi paradox. Things like a civilization, as it becomes more advanced, turns inward instead of outward. So this wouldn't really be a great filter because the civilization still exists. But instead of exploring the universe and going out on a macro scale, it maybe becomes more interested at a micro scale.
Yeah.
Maybe exploring quantum worlds, or also building virtual worlds for it to live in, like a matrix almost.
Yeah.
So it's way easier to build a virtual world that's essentially infinite in size, kind of like No Man's Sky or something, that video game, than it is to build spaceships that go explore this universe that we can't even explore. It's too big.
You know, that option of going into inward and going to like a virtual world sounds like the vegan option.
What's this?
Well, I just feel like if you really if you take veganism to like a ridiculous extent, like you don't want to harm anything, like you don't want to step on some like little bugs when you're walking around, you don't want to like even mess up the ecosystem that's here on Earth, and so maybe you just convert yourself to information and retreat into like a little cube that's solar powered or something, and you just like you don't bug the environment at all. You know, just dipping, just excusing yourself from the environment because you can only hurt things.
Yeah, that sounds like an extremism to me.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
But I could see why you would think that way. Why, like, we've hurt the earth so much. It's like, why don't we just like excuse ourselves?
Just off ourselves.
Yeah, well, not just off ourselves, but just put ourselves in a place where we can't hurt anybody or anything.
Yeah. Well, I feel that there's balance in all things, and right now we're probably not finding the right balance, like anywhere close to the right balance, and maybe we need to align ourselves better with a more symbiotic balance with the earth.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's cool. I don't think I'd heard the inward thing. Maybe I had, but I think that's so likely.
There's one other really interesting one. There's maybe like 10 or 15 different answers for the Fermi paradox. Where the hell are the aliens? But one I really like is this idea called the dark forest. And it kind of gets into like a phantasmic idea set. But the notion is that a civilization, if it was intelligent, there's this really horrible problem essentially with light years being in between civilizations and communication. So say you found a civilization and they're 6 light years away. Well, there's not a great way probably for the two civilizations to conduct diplomacy. Mm-hmm. There's language barriers, but even bigger than that, there's light year barriers. There's no way to ensure that this new civilization you may have found is safe or is going to be friendly to you. So the only logical thing to do, this idea argues, is to destroy them. Because if you don't, they will destroy you, or maybe they will take up the time to destroy you because it takes time to travel anyway. So they have 80 light years maybe of time to build up a military to destroy you. The only logical thing to do is to kill them if you find them, or to hide as much as possible so that they never find you. So that's where the dark forest idea comes in, where it would make sense for civilizations to want to mask themselves at any cost possible. Because if they don't, it's like being hunted by wolves. They will be found and they will be killed, because it's only logical for a civilization to want to survive. And to do that, it needs, in some ways, it might make the most sense in like a game theory type of way to kill as soon as they find a civilization. And the way it gets kind of phantasmic is that people have said the idea of dark matter. I don't know if you've heard of dark matter, where all this matter in the universe that we don't see, but it's there. We just can't detect it. We just know it's there because otherwise the galaxies would be flying apart. So some people have tied this dark forest idea back into dark matter. Is this could be, and it's probably not, it's just fun to think about. This could be an explanation for dark matter as well. Maybe there are civilizations that have harnessed all the and are being masked by it or hidden by it or using it in some way that we don't understand, where we can't detect or see the matter in a straightforward way.
That's pretty cool. They're on ghost mode.
Yep, ghost mode.
That's really neat. I like that idea. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. There's been some books written about it by Chinese authors, like fiction books that I've heard are highly recommended. I haven't read myself, but search the Dark Forest on Google if you want to learn more about that one. I didn't explain it as well. There's some other cool kind of logical assumptions that come into play.
That's what ghosts are? Because dark matter's everywhere, right? Like dark matter's in the room with me right now, right?
Right. That's the idea of dark matter, yes. And it's basically, it gets into like physics, is just like the universe doesn't make sense unless this matter's somewhere, but we can't see it. We can't directly detect it yet.
Yeah. Kind of crazy. Do you know the figure of like how much matter is missing? Like the fraction?
I think it's like 75% of or 50% of matter is not visible, but it should be there.
I knew it was something like that. It's a large chunk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of disturbing. What the heck? One of the interesting physics questions of the century hopefully will be answered.
Shout out to Stevie Hawking. Wish you were still here crunching numbers, figuring this out for us.
I'm throwing the shocker for him right now. Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Aliens that do come in, that is cool. You think you gonna merge with machines as soon as it's possible?
Well, I think in a lot of ways we've all already made this decision.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm talking like literally. Are you like, or is one of the reasons why you're getting into learning about this stuff so that you can sort of have an educated guess before you have a needle of nanobots injected straight into your brainstem?
Yeah, I guess that's one of the things is like it'd be nice to understand it a little bit if that was the road I needed to go down. It's probably in a lot of scenarios that's the most optimistic thing that could happen is like some of the alternatives are just totally awful and dystopic and calamity like and world ending potentially. So if we did just merge with the artificial intelligence instead of being wiped out by it or brought to an irrelevant state or something like that. I mean, we are the most intelligent things that we know of in the whole universe. That places us at the center of the universe in our minds in a lot of ways. So what happens when our egos are shattered and we're no longer the most important things in the universe? We're not the jugglers, making everything happen. We're no longer the music makers in that way.
Yeah.
I think that could mess with our heads a lot. So I think merging with the technology is kind of the most optimistic idea.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you have fantasies about what it'd be like to be a half machine and to have like way more capacity for everything, for seeing outside of the electromagnetic spectrum, just like having so much more working memory to like, I don't even know, like what do you have? Can you describe what you think it might be like to be part robot?
Totally. Yeah. I think that it would be really, really similar to when you put your glasses on and you can see better, or you put your sunglasses on and the glare's not hurting your eyes, or you pick up your phone and you know the name of a song in 10 seconds, or You are asked an important question and you can immediately find it out through the total sum of human knowledge on your mobile device. It will feel very similar to that, but I think it will just be even stronger. It will be even more incredible. But I also think we'll, like these things that I'm talking about, we will not appreciate them for what they are eventually. We'll take them for granted, kind of like we do these things today.
Yeah. You know what I always think about when I think about being part robot? Did you watch Battlestar Galactica?
Oh man,
I don't
yeah,
know if we
heck
talked
yeah.
about this because I don't feel like you even were the one who told me to watch it. It's possible.
Probably. I really like
I liked it a
Battlestar.
lot too. I fracking loved it. But there's this one scene where one of the bots, the old guy that was like sort of the betrayer bot.
Spoiler. But if you haven't watched it
Yeah,
yet,
yeah. It's good.
it's been 8 years. Just go watch it if you
It's been
haven't
eight
seen it.
years. It's been
Maybe
longer.
it's been yeah, maybe longer. Jeez.
So there was this one time. I would say it's if I had to guess the season, I would say like 3. I don't know, but in this episode, the ship was near. They were in space and they were near a supernova, and everyone on the ship was looking out the window at this supernova exploding. And it was like a rare event. It's kind of like a solar eclipse or something on Earth where everybody has to go see it because it's kind of rare. And this robot was talking to another robot, and he was like, "Have you ever seen a supernova explode?" And then the other robot's like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I have. And you know what? I had to look at it with these ridiculous gelatinous orbs in my skull. I had to see it with this degraded version of sight. I am a
Oh my
robot.
gosh.
I want to taste X-rays. I want to smell gamma rays. I want," and he basically went on about like the capacity of like your senses if you're a robot and how much richer the experience of everything is. And basically seeing this
Whoa.
supernova with this super abbreviated version of senses just through the eyes with we can only see part of the electromagnetic spectrum where the rainbow is, the visible light, but there's so much more. And then on top of that, there's all kinds of other information in the universe. And then being a robot, you combine all that into one thing, and somehow that experience is so much richer. And I don't know. So I don't know what it would actually be like, but I do think of how offended he was that he had to look at a supernova through the senses of a human being.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think about this sometimes, like, we're just like he's saying, like little walking sacks of flesh. Like, there's no way we're interpreting everything, the universe, the world around us, as it really is. We're seeing it through our sack of flesh eyes. Like, it's got to be a little different at least than how it actually is. And yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how the enhancement of all of these things, like our phones for now, and maybe X-ray tasting in the future, will change us and how we'll grow and learn
It's
from all that.
interesting. And I wonder too, like, will everything where he was using the metaphors of like taste and sight, like tasting X-rays, smelling. He actually at one point he's like, I don't even have the fucking words to describe what I want to talk about because I'm using this limited human language. And I wonder, like, I wonder if we'll always keep the metaphors of what our original intelligence was. Like I wonder about how we will iterate away from what's familiar to us now to like totally alien versions of what intelligence is. Like when you think of like, I think of it as like the evolution of music. We can like look at the evolution of like rock and roll, like where things slowly change over time, where like the next one contains some of the elements of the former, and then it gets different and more divergent over time. I feel like our base, I wonder how much of our base organization of thought and sensing that will feel is important as we go on.
Huh. Kind of. It's like a Brave New World, man. Like
Yeah.
some kind of scary stuff. We're going into territory no one really has ever been.
You ever fuck around with psychedelics, man?
Real question. I feel like we've been skirting this whole conversation.
Well, I have done them, and I have to say, like, I didn't feel any of the things that people, like, when people describe, like, you can, like, you start to see other dimensions and, like, you're tapping into something else. And maybe I just didn't take enough, maybe I got to take way more, but.
Step it up, Ryan.
So have you, and did you? Do you feel like you tapped into what it might be to be a robot?
No, I really haven't. No, I haven't. I don't know what it would be like to be a robot from drugs, but I do have friends that used to robo trip.
And it has robo in the name, so.
No, honestly, I had this friend in school. He would go sit in his little like school closet. It was not a big closet. It was like a dorm room closet. And he would trip Robitussin like every freaking weekend, and like 2 or 3 nights a weekend, I think is what he was doing. And he honestly lost his mind. And he said he was turning into a robot. He really did. He was robo-tripping. He was drinking Robitussin. And this kid like would act like a robot. I'm not even shitting you. It like doesn't even sound like a real story. But he would move in a robotic way, and he even explained it. He's like, I feel like I'm turning more into a robot. And eventually he's like, I gotta stop this. This is not healthy. But for like a 6-month period there, Jebediah, I think is what his name was. He was doing too much robo tripping.
Was he a former what are those people call Amish? Was he Amish?
Man, the school I went to, Hillsdale, I mentioned kind of earlier, I went there for 2 years, and that school was so messed up. Don't go there. If you're thinking of going there, I would probably not recommend it. If it's like, whew. So yeah, it was like mostly homeschooled kids. So there's some real weird people. I don't think that's like, if you homeschool your kids, man, just make sure they go out every night and like go to karate or something. Like, God, I've been with homeschool kids for 2 years. It was not healthy for anyone involved. Man. So yeah, socialize your kids, right?
When he moved like a robot, was he like doing the robot, like the dance?
Kind of a little bit. Yeah, he would like put his arms kind of like that, and he would just be like really mechanical with his movements.
You think that could be an identity? Like something, could you, in this day and age, in the year 2019, could you fight for the right to be identified as a robot? People live as babies and dogs and cats, and there's all kinds of really like out there identities. I wonder if maybe there is a robot already out there.
This is an interesting part of kind of transhumanism, really, I think is what it starts to talk to, is like, if we can merge with our technology and become like kind of transhumanists, which means, you're becoming more than human. It's like the next stage of humanity, and it's technology based. Then yeah, what else can we merge with? What else can we become? Maybe you want to simulate the experience of being a lobster, and that's what your identity is and what you want to exist as. And so I think that we're going to have to face these kinds of questions. I think we're seeing that a lot over the last few years, is like, hang on, people are saying, hang on, I can be these other things. And I see some legitimacy there. and I see it has a whole lot of weird social repercussions that I can't even begin to answer.
I have a question
But
in this along this vein, which goes sort of back to like my question about like what are we going to keep about the brain? What do you think is the essential human element? What do you, if you had to define human beings going forward, knowing that like we probably will dramatically change our bodies and our minds, what is the thing that unites us as humans together?
well, I think that we will change our bodies and our minds, and maybe there will be this notion of a third gender that comes around where you're kind of in between male and female. I think that we could see something kind of similar to that idea
I mean, I think it
evolving.
already is here. There's plenty of them.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I think we'll see that continue to evolve and become
But
defined
I mean,
more.
like when
And
someone decides to be a lobster person, like you were saying.
so, well, what is the humanness? What makes us human? Well, that's really tough to answer. It's like, when do we stop being human? Like, when are we something different or something more? And it kind of makes me think of the philosophical question of Theseus's ship. Have you heard
No,
of
that
Theseus's
sounds
ship?
cool though.
Theseus's ship is this idea that Theseus, a Greek sailor, he has a ship. It's called Theseus's ship, and he sails the ship around, and he needs to do repairs on his ship. So he removes one board from the plank, and he fixes it and repairs it, puts a brand new piece of board in, and then continues sailing. Well, is this still Theseus's ship? Well, I think most people would probably say, yeah, it's a ship. However, time goes on, and eventually every single board, plank, nail, everything on the ship is replaced because it just needs repaired. At what point does it stop becoming Theseus's ship, the original ship?
Yeah.
So if I get my leg replaced, am I still Nate? I probably,
Yeah.
yeah. All my appendages replaced, am I still me? Yeah. So I think that it almost starts to steer the question or the answers towards, that it's not as well defined as we may like. And yes, you're still human. Now you're just a human acting as a lobster, if you want to maybe be more specific.
Yeah. So what you're saying is the change is going to be gradual, and what we call human is probably a moving target.
Yeah. Yeah. Way nicer
No,
said
your
than I
whole
could say it.
illustration said it nicely. And I think of that when you said that too, I think about how, and I don't know how true this is, I think it's true, where they say like every 7 years, every cell in your body is replaced. Like every 7 years, you're technically a different person or different stuff.
Right.
We are
Right.
Theseus's ship.
That's the name of our metal band.
Yeah, I don't know. I always feel like I don't know. I feel like we have to like unite under something, but I don't know what it is. Like I feel like we have to like at least come up with like a cool slogan to be like. I feel like we always have to keep talking to each other. Like I feel like there's going to be tribes of human beings that go off in different parts of the universe and be different things. But I feel like if we ever stop talking to each other, that's what's not good.
I agree. Uh, that's what we do. We're kind of special in that way. We have build relationships and express ideas and build societies, and that gets passed down from generation to generation. And there's really no other being that's ever done that. We're special in that way, is that we can share ideas with each other and share them through generations, not just in the current generation.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
yeah,
special. Pretty powerful too. Look where it's gotten us. Is we get to stand on the shoulders of giants every day. All the people that came before us, just standing on each other, building up this pretty impressive thing, I think.
yeah. Wait, what was I going to say a second ago? Oh yeah, going back to your thing about um, we're already robots because of our phones. Do you know, like, you've heard the concept of the extended mind, right?
Um, I think
It's
so.
just like
Maybe.
it's just these guys that are like, well, the brain doesn't end at the brain. The brain is also uses the environment as part of it. Like, of course, now this is obvious to us because like you don't remember anybody's phone number. You don't remember a lot of facts because they're one Google away or one just like a couple flicks of your thumb away from that information. So that information you have access to it immediately, and so it may as well be in your brain. And so the theory of the extended
Hmm.
mind is that the human brain is like modular in this way that like think about a married couple where like they've lived with each other for so long that one person always remembers these things and the other person remembers that, and they're always with each other, and so they can depend on that, and so each other's brains are extension of their own brain.
Huh.
They talk about a
That's cool.
notepad. The easiest way to think about it is a notepad. Like if you take notes all the time, like is that notepad your brain? No, but you can retrieve things from it, like as if it's a spot in your brain.
Huh.
And so that's the interesting thing about humans and why like like we're saying, like adding things on in the future is not too different from what we already do. And like we were saying too, like the interesting thing about humans is we are this shared culture. We become humans through exposure to this culture. And so I think of the internet too and everybody else on the internet. Now I feel like my mind is is also being shared with everyone else's. Like I'm not just it's not just like it's like I'm almost becoming married to like the entire world because of our constant connectivity. It's
Yeah, man, that's a really powerful idea.
yeah.
Really
Like to
powerful.
me, I know that they say that the human being is one person, like when you look at that fucking golden record with like the picture of like the man and the woman on it, like the one you
Yeah.
like I, it's hard to think about it this way, but I feel like yeah, and if you think about a human that was a feral child, raised alone, and how they're like totally, totally degraded mentally because they didn't have this exposure to everyone else. And it's because
Right.
our environment is each other. We live in culture. Without that substrate of
Huh.
culture, we do not become fully human. Or maybe you could argue like the feral kids are human and they're like a really weird, cool iteration of it. But when you look at their brains, but yeah, so that's what I've been thinking about a lot lately is that we need to stop thinking of humans as individuals and start thinking of us as a unit and as a unit as a whole, and we are not only all these individuals but we're also the culture that we're passing down.
Right. Totally. Yeah, no, I think of the idea of, you've heard the idea of 7 degrees of separation, or sometimes I think it's like 7 degrees of Kevin
Yeah, yeah.
Bacon or
Hmm.
something, where you're essentially connected to every single person in the world, just separated by 7 other
Hmm.
people. So, wow, how powerful is that? That's amazing. So I like to just, you know, it's so important to give the right things to the right people around you, or just to the people around you, because that's going to emanate and ripple out really, really fast to the rest of the world.
Yeah, so that's what that when you think of that, yeah, yeah, going back to that like local community thing, it's hard to ignore how global we are now, and like what do we do with that?
Right. No, I agree. Yeah, I feel like that was almost like what the 20th century struggle was about, like with all the
It's
world wars.
still happening, I'd say.
Oh, totally. It's
The
like,
internet's just like a new level
whoa.
of that. I think the internet's really
Yeah,
fucking us hard right now.
it's blowing our minds, that's for sure. It's, what do we do with all this new information? How do we guarantee that our information is true? What is truth? All those fun questions.
Do you know one of my favorite animals that I just learned about like a year or two ago is called a siphonophore? Have you heard of those? You
Oh,
know, the man o' war. It looks like it's in
yeah.
the jellyfish family. The man o' war is the most popular siphonophore, but there are many different kinds. But it looks like a jellyfish. If you've ever seen it, it looks like an purple air sac floating on the top of the water, and then there's like a bunch of like
Oh,
jellyfish tendrils hanging below. That's the man of war, which is a siphonophore. That's the most popular one. But they look like chandeliers. They have all kinds of crazy shapes. But the interesting thing about the siphonophore is it's not one being. It's actually like a swarm of individuals, and
mm,
the each individual has the same DNA, but just by circumstance, they either become like a tentacle or the head or the eyeball. Each individual is a different part of the body, and they sort of share. They're connected, but each of them they all have the same DNA, but just fate leads to them being like the mouth or the butthole, and and so yeah, I guess I've been thinking of human beings a lot more like that, like
yes. It's so accurate. It's horrible. It's like the human
yeah,
centipede. It's
like I just feel like you have to look at us as a unit.
someone has to be the mouth and someone has to be the
Yeah,
butthole.
inevitably.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I
But yeah,
mean,
I do still wonder though, like I guess that's why I asked or I mentioned like you're an economics student first, is like I just feel like I think that like I really strongly believe that you can't whittle a human being down to the individual anymore. It's a lot more subtle than that.
yeah, totally.
And I just feel like the ideology of capitalism is like the individual is at its core, like the wants and needs and desires of the individual. And to me, maybe it's like basic and like immature, but it does feel like that ideology goes against what I believe. I don't know. It seems like if you ignore what I think, which is, the basic unit of human is not one human. It's sort of like, I don't know, at least a couple. I don't know. I feel like capitalism like overlooks that, and maybe I'm worried about that um, ignoring, um, yeah, what is maybe essentially human, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, no, I didn't even want to bring up capitalism because it's like I don't really know that much about it, and I try to understand, but like if, in my layman's understanding of it, it seems to ignore a lot of subtlety in favor of efficiency.
Yeah, totally, totally. Um, I don't disagree. There's capitalism
And the
is
fact that it's
the
the
worst
fact
form
that it's the driver of
of,
of a lot of these technologies too is what worries me with artificial intelligence, is that like it's almost like a lot of artificial intelligence is being developed for financial gain and for just basically to work in the market. I feel like the artificial intelligence is almost a market being, and that's what worries me a lot about it,
yeah.
I guess.
Ooh, ooh, I like that. Yeah, that makes me think of like all the trading that happens like in nanoseconds, milliseconds, all this automated trading where there's artificial intelligence is making decisions about the stock market and moving millions of dollars probably every second or minute. Um, and it's all automated and it's out of our control. And if we tried to control it again, we would never be able to keep up with any automated system. So, and that's capitalism pretty much at its purest form.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I totally worry about Like, where are the ethics involved, and how do we make sure that our our algorithms and our approaches are fair and balanced, and that's tricky. It's going to be hard. We're not putting enough effort into it yet.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, that is one of my biggest worries about that is that idea right there is what makes me cringe at my exuberance for the singularity. Because I worry that the flavor of intelligence is going to be this thing that understands human beings as individual units and, just basically capitalist ideology.
Yeah, and there's a real risk through all of this that as we develop all of this technology, which is really power, as we develop all this power, it might be centralized in just a few people's hands. Like, think of super rich people like Jeff Bezos or something. I can envision pretty easily a world where the super rich kind of want to go live by themselves, separate themselves away from everything, maybe build their houses up with all this security around them, or maybe in the far future, like robotic protection systems, stuff like that, because they don't necessarily, I mean, this is far off, but they don't need the working class anymore. So what happens when the elites no longer need the working class? I worry that there's just this all out chaos. And not only that, but all of the automation that's gone into military weaponry, to the point where we might be in a really tough situation where we don't have the capability to defend ourselves, even with our right to bear arms or something like that, that's built into our constitution, that's hopefully there to protect us against an overbearing militaristic government, autocratic government. So I envision things like little drones that, and there's another YouTube video about this, drones that maybe fit in the palm of your hand, that have a little slice of C4 putty explosive.
Yeah, I saw this video you sent.
Yeah. And they track down and ruthlessly exterminate people by flying up to their heads and exploding. And how do you defend yourself against that if there's swarms of thousands of those things targeting specific people? You can't, there's no way you're going to stop that. So I'm really, maybe there is a defense against something like that, but I do fear all of this. If we don't start watching out for each other now and start balancing some of the power out now, then it's going to get out of hand.
And I mean, the rich people are already building those bunkers in New Zealand. Famously, they're all going to
Really?
New Zealand. Yeah, because it's just like the furthest from everything. It does sound great.
I just want to do that, honestly. I'm try and be in the this is horrid, this is horrible, and I shouldn't even say this, but in some ways, like, if you, and I guess it's not that bad, but if you want to make sure something like that doesn't happen, and you want to impact the world for the greater good, I feel like getting rich is probably a good way to do it. And I don't know, because I'm not rich, but I feel like that's a way. If more sane people are rich, and maybe we can gain back some of that power, which is really money. And I guess I see that there's power in wealth, so it might be better to just be wealthy and try and do good through that wealth, is something that I often think about too. And I'm no money whatsoever. I'm not wealthy, but I don't know. Sometimes, like, you got to work with the system. Like, don't hate the player, hate the game type of thing. Like, just go after it. And I guess gain power before some of this horrible stuff happens is kind of in my mind.
So your advice is be rich.
It's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna hurt at all. It's one of the most solid strategies I can think of. But
and even then though, like even then I hear things about, like, it seems like Bill Gates is doing cool shit, but then I hear, I don't know the exact criticisms, but I've heard people say like, well, this whole thing that he spent $1 billion on failed. This is dumb. This is dumb. Like, yeah, he's trying his best, but it'd be better if he just, gave his money out. I don't know. But that's all I'm saying is like intentions are one thing.
He is giving his money out, though.
But I guess I'm saying is like be rich and then help people. It's like your intention may be to help, but like you just never know.
Well, you don't, but I gotta stand up for Bill Gates. He's doing way more help than harm, I think.
I want to think Bill's cool.
Eliminate malaria. He's working hard to eliminate malaria, and from what I understand, he's doing a great job.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things, but I've also heard criticisms, and I want to believe he's a cool guy, but I just don't know. I've heard mixed things.
I used to just despise Microsoft and Bill Gates, but he's I kind of, in some ways, I appreciate what he's done, like, sure, he's gotten filthy rich and that's kind of gross, but he gave us personal computing, and that changed my life personally, and it probably changed everyone else's life, hopefully in a somewhat better way.
I met him once. Yeah,
seriously?
I saw a video. We like interviewed him once. I was very nervous.
No way. I didn't. Where'd you interview him?
In Seattle. I think that's where their headquarters are. Yeah, it was insane. Like, well, it was like, yeah, we were shooting. It was like an interview, and like I was like in charge of the whole shoot, and like I don't feel like I'm a good person to be in charge, but I was like testing all these microphones and stuff beforehand, making sure everything was okay. And then when Bill came in, something was the matter with this microphone, and it's like these these radio microphones, like they use like radio channels.
You're like every second is
That's
worth
exactly
like
what I was thinking, and I was like, because his mic was like, it was like radio feedback, like, and I was like, oh no, you can't imagine my stomach dropping when I heard his microphone messing up. And I tried to use the backup, and the backup wasn't working either. And and so I was like scanning for a fresh channel and shit. And I don't know how long it actually was. I think it was about 5 minutes or so. And I haven't done the calculations about how much money he was making during that 5 minutes. But yeah, it was one of the most terrifying things in my life. What was that?
It was a 5-minute interview?
5 minutes was me fumbling with mics, trying to fix them. And he was just sitting there staring at me.
Watch this? What do I search for to watch this?
It was for The Verge, like Verge, Bill Gates. I'm actually in it for the intro of it, like, because I did the edit too, and I was like, I'm putting myself in this shit. It was me putting a mic on him because I didn't want to ask for a selfie, but I did want to get a picture with him. So when he was in front of the camera and I was rolling, I said, okay, I need to put a microphone on you so that I could get into the frame, put the microphone on, turn towards the camera, and then we were both in the frame, and I got a selfie with him. But yeah, it was really terrifying. But it's crazy because he's just so fucking rich. You're just like, this guy is so fucking powerful. It was really weird. He was a normal guy, really normal and stuff. Actually, kind of weird.
Really? How was he weird? Oh yeah, there you are. I'm watching the video. Dude, man. Touching Bill Gates is the most.
Oh my god, Nate, you still there? Nate, hello.
Yeah, can you hear me? Dude, I just watched. I don't know how much you heard. I thought I could watch that video. Must have messed up my mic, but I watched you touching Bill Gates.
Yeah.
I just pulled it up. It's great.
Yeah, so that was me. That was my plan to get the selfie. It was like I didn't really need to adjust the mic in that moment, but I told him, let me adjust the mic real quick so I could get that shot.
Perfect. Nailed it.
But then, yeah, after that, the mic problems happened. That was when I was still in good spirits.
That is so
But the
funny,
weird part
man.
is after that, like when I was like testing the mic to get the levels right, this is just something you do. You just ask people what they had for breakfast so that they can like speak for about 2 sentences, and you can like just gauge on how their normal speaking voice is. And I was like, I just need to test the microphones real quick. Can you like just what'd you have for breakfast? And he was like, nothing. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, like, what do you normally have? And then he's like, nothing. I was like, oh, fuck. I don't have any more questions. I just really need you to talk for a second to get these levels. You guys, like, it's just chit chat out of here. And it was just like the most difficult thing to get him to just jabber for a second. He wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude.
But yeah, I think about that guy's power, and I'm like, if I were him, like, what would I be doing? Like, I do have an urge to like help people, and I see how bad the world is. And I guess maybe he's doing his best. Maybe he's doing better than I would if I were in his position, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would not be doing as well as he is. I would be addicted to cocaine on a boat somewhere, probably.
Are you holding your microphone weird? You sound like you're in a sort of like a barrel now.
Oh,
Okay,
is it not working? Okay, sorry. Yeah, probably would not handle that much money well. That's way too much money. Way too much.
So I thought of it. I don't know. You can shut this down if you want, but my idea for when we got to a good stopping part was to stop and then pick it back up, but in between now and then, either smoke a lot of weed or eat an edible, and then have the second chapter of this be a more of like a druggy sort of vibey. I don't know what thoughts will come to my head then, but I do know that my whole way of thinking about things changes a lot. Maybe it'll be worth it. What do you think?
Are you trying to do that
Yeah.
today? Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that some more. I could be convinced we could do something fun like that. That sounds good.
Because like yesterday, I had this long conversation about toxic masculinity, and it was with an Asian woman. She was basically just telling me what it's like to be her, and I was telling her what it's like to be me, and we both feel futile in this moment, and just like it was a whole convo. And then later I like smoked weed and I was like, fuck, I'm having all kinds of thoughts now that I didn't even think of in that moment. And so I wonder if it's just like worth it to my audience to give them both parts of me.
Oh wow. Okay, a little dichotomy there. Yeah, let's do it. Let's give the audience what they need.
Maybe it'll be bad.
It probably will be hilarious. It will probably be good.
So let's end it now, and then I'll call you back on a regular phone, and we can talk about when we want to get back on the line. Because like I might eat an edible or something. I don't know what I'll do.
Oh shit! Something's gonna happen. DMT if you've got it.
You're gonna do some DMT?
I wish. I've never done it. I don't have any. I've just heard it's like dying.
That does sound interesting. Last time I got drugs from a dude, I asked him if he had DMT, and he was like, "What? Nah."
I heard that back in the day you could buy like a big tub of it online. It was like not that hard to get, but I think that was like 15 years ago or something like that.
Okay. Well, it's a good place to stop here now too, because your phone does keep going back into barrel mode.
Okay, I don't know.
Sometimes
what's wrong with it.
it's just this app. Like sometimes it just happens. It's actually, I think it's with Androids. I've noticed.
Maybe my Wi-Fi is not strong enough or something like that.
I think it has to do with that you have an Android, because I've noticed it with someone else that had an Android. And it sounds good most of the time. It actually only just started kind of getting weird.
Barrel mode. I was doing some weird things with my phone a second ago. I shouldn't have touched it. It's my fault.
All right.
Android's better.
So I hope you enjoyed the first.
Hello?
Just when you were saying don't blame Android, your app crashes. Okay. Well,
great.
we were about to wrap it up anyway. So when we get back, when you hear us next, we'll be in another state of mind, and maybe we'll have thoughts that we didn't have before, or maybe they'll be the same thoughts. I don't know.
Snacks, definitely snacks.
And also some time between it, we'll be like, oh, we didn't talk about this, and this. So maybe that'll happen too.
That sounds good.
How long should our break be?
Enough time for me to stop sweating.
What are you sweating?
I don't know, man. My armpits are just kind of sweaty.
Mine are too, but I guess, yeah, it's kind of hot here.
I need to just go air out. You're in LA?
Yeah.
Is it hot there, really?
It's finally 75 degrees today. It's been really cold and rainy for the last week. It's been really, really dreary. It's beautiful today now.
That's lucky. Man, I'm in Portland. It's so rainy. All right, man. Let's talk a little bit. I'll call you on the real phone and we'll get it set up.
Okay, we'll be back in 1 second. Welcome back.
That's right.
Welcome back to the AI Armageddon podcast, where we talk about merging with machines. Welcome back. It's the AI Armageddon podcast. It cut off before. This is the podcast. This is the podcast where we're talking about artificial intelligence, the singularity, brains, what it means to be human, other cool science topics, aliens. This is the second half.
Brains.
All right. We took it was about an hour break.
Yeah. Got a little food in my tummy.
We had a false start a second ago. Did you hear it? You answered a second ago and then it hung up, right?
Yeah, so here's what happened. I was listening to the awesome sounds of the Singularity keyboard, and my cheekbone hit the X button on this app.
Frick, dude.
Yep.
Because my synth on that time was so much better than the second time.
That was what I was worried about. Yep.
I don't even know what I did. So yeah, but I'll put the first one in there for as much as I can get of it, just because I want to let the audience hear how good it was at least one time.
Yeah, and if we need to jam on that maybe as an outro, that would be probably a good thing too, maybe.
Yeah, I'd like to try something. It's so easy. Arpeggios are cheating. Look, I haven't actually had a keyboard like this until recently, and I'm loving it, dude.
You just push one key and it does that whole thing?
I push a chord.
Okay.
Chord.
You hold the chord.
Here's a G,
You can hear it.
You can do that. You can go to... Yeah. Sweet. And then you just increase the tempo. Boom. Takes you all the way to singularity.
Well,
What?
I think the inventor of the synthesizer, or at least some version of it, was Ray Kurzweil.
Oh, yeah.
It relates back to what we're talking about. It's perfect.
True.
I I guess for those who hadn't heard of Ray, I think he works at Google now, but he's written
Oh
books.
yeah.
Books I think called The Age of Spiritual Machines, and I think another one maybe called The Singularity is Near. I think those are by him.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I was
he's
totally a Ray head.
curious. Oh, you're a Ray head.
I was a Ray head for a bit. I didn't read his books. I might have listened to one audiobook. I can't recall. But I listened to all his talks. I watched his talks. I read like interviews and stuff and things he wrote. And I was like, you know what, Ray, you're right.
I saw an interesting post on Reddit of all places the other day. Someone analyzed his expectations and his predictions, and he was kind of hit or miss for the predictions he made around this time period. I think he was a little on the optimistic side, and I think part of the problem with his predictions is that Moore's law has slowed down over the last 10 years or so. We're not really seeing that doubling effect like we used to. I think it's slowing down at a rate.
You sound like a weatherman right now. Can you go into like a weatherman thing?
Why
So we're looking at the microchips. Wait, what's the thing? They can't get them any smaller, right?
Yeah, they can't get them. Basically, exactly. They can't get them any smaller.
Wait, what are it's something about like electrons, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're like 6 nanometer size, like electricity conduits in the processors. I don't even know, man. It's
Oh, you don't know. I didn't know if you know like the technical thing.
I know a little bit about processors, but yeah, they're pretty. I can't believe that humans are capable of crafting them. They're phantasmagorical. I think the system they use is like a lithographic system to make the prints for the processors, and they have like to the nanometer definition of all these electrical gates and
wow,
function.
I like that you sort of have a respect for that since you did the, like print stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were doing lithography there with not nearly the definition, but yeah,
that's insane.
It's like a printing process. That's really fascinating to me. That the ability to replicate something that's valuable to us has always been interesting to me, and that's part of why I'm drawn to programming. Is it's you can replicate it. It's replicatable basically infinitely.
True. You feel like there's something cool about scale, like that replicability. That is almost like whenever machines started coming into our lives, in like the 1800s ish, that was like synonymous with like just like spreading wealth in like an almost like neutral way, right? Like that was I mean, I guess if I want to say literally, like I was like synonymous with democracy and with or just like freeing people from labor.
Yeah, totally.
Because of like, yeah, that's the beauty of the machine, I guess, is to like free you from labor.
Well, yeah, like that's exactly why I'm so drawn to automation. It's like, let's free ourselves from some of the repetitive tasks of daily life.
I think a lot of people's problems with that is like I think what we were saying before is just like a lot of parts of life aren't reducible to something like that, or at least like that's the fight that's being put up right now, is like how much of it is reducible to that like rigid grid. Yeah, pretty sad.
Yeah, you're right. I can see what you're saying. Like, there's not as much nuance, maybe. We lose some of the human qualities and some of the human touches, and that's a real loss that I think we will feel very deeply, but it still frees us up to put a human touch in other places. So I hope that automation allows for greater expression of arts and greater ability for humans to take care of each other and spend time with one another, and less time, hopefully, doing mundane, repetitive tasks.
Mm-hmm.
That's the dream, and that's really the dream that I see in some ways being fulfilled today. we'll see how far we can push it. But some of the stuff like I see with the Tesla auto drive just blows my mind.
What? With what?
The Tesla self-driving capabilities, there's already self-driving cars on the road. So there's different levels of self-driving capability. I think there's 4 levels. And I think Tesla are maybe at level 2 or 3 right now. Basically, they can take over and completely drive themselves, but a human has to be ready to take back over at any time.
Yeah. If you've seen the Casey Neistat vlogs, folks, you know what he's talking about.
Yeah, so the car can do some really incredible things like predict accidents that are coming up, and you have to imagine that this network of cars will be built out, and every car can learn from every other car. So there's actually going to be this really interesting push. So people talk about cloud computing today, and so if you're still not real sure what the cloud is just a whole lot of computers that's owned by some big company in the middle of Colorado or the middle of Oregon or the middle of North Carolina somewhere in a big data center. So Google or Amazon Web Services might own these cloud computing, and it just allows anyone to develop applications on Google's middle of Colorado so that I don't have to run servers myself in my house or in my local business. And it's all taken care of by Google. Well, an interesting thing I think we're going to see happen is that cloud computing is kind of going to go away a little bit. And what we're going to see is that there's going to be more local compute happening on things like self-driving Tesla vehicles or any self-driving car, or sensors that are maybe doing some extreme calculations on your clothing or your footwear. We're going to see all of that compute kind of come back locally so that it can make quick decisions on the fly right there where you're having a problem or you need some help from AI.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you're saying our devices have been sort of dumb and dialing into a smart brain, and now it's sort of spreading the brain around.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly. It makes sense to, instead of having this big centralized brain, to have this radical decentralization of technologies now, I think is what we're going to see, where things happen locally because that's the most efficient. You don't waste a second round trip going to talk to Colorado and come back with an answer. No, let's have an answer in the next millisecond right now and make a good decision about the driving conditions, for example.
Yeah, because you're saying a lot of those things right now are like, I don't even know. I guess Waze is kind of interesting in that way. The Waze network is,
yeah.
But you're saying a lot of this when you when you route somewhere in Google Maps, it's like it's going to take you 40 minutes. Here's where the traffic is, and it's like dialing into this information on this central hub.
Yeah.
And you're saying all these cars are talking to each other, and so you're communicating on close proximities, and decentralization is all you're saying. It's like you're doing everything locally. You can maybe dial back into a hub for some reason, but you don't need it necessarily.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think that kind of goes along with the whole Internet of Things idea, where we'll see processors and intelligence embedded in lots of different everyday household items. And maybe it will be most efficient for some of those items to be making decisions locally. Like I think Apple's unlocking capabilities with the face, what's it called? Face ID, I think.
Apple? Face ID.
That, I believe, is using a lot of local machine learning technology. So it's not necessarily going back to the central server for everything. It's computing a lot of that locally. And I think we're going to just see that get pushed more and more.
That's pretty cool. You know what that immediately makes me think of is when we were talking about like feral children, how like I guess you're saying these basically your car is going to be like, taking on its own identity and learning from its own environment and sort of, I mean, sharing information when it needs to, but it's sort of like an organism like adapting to its environment. And it's just the idea of like keeping like your computer like alone and like basically like advancing in some ways, like getting older and getting updates on processing and something, but like not exposing it to the network and making like a feral computer.
Oh man, that's something that makes me think of a really interesting moral and ethical question that is already happening right now, and that's Tesla apparently has this self-driving car automation technology available on every single Tesla on the road, I think, or at least some specific models. It's available. It's completely there and available. However, the owner of the car has to pay some not very small sum of money, something like in the tens of thousands, I think, to unlock these capabilities. And so what happens if these capabilities actually save lives? Well, it creates what I think is kind of an awful conundrum where you have to pay to save your own life. It's just, I don't know if I have the whole story right there, but there's definitely analogous scenarios that will happen with other companies in the future where they may be charging people higher premiums for life-saving technologies or preferences, something along those lines.
Would you compare it to an airbag? Like, because like I guess you could say that that's kind of been the case in the past too, with like cars with better airbags.
That's true. You're right. Maybe airbags were a feature or they are a feature, so you're not always going to get it. I think you're right.
But you're right too. I agree with you. If we have it and it's just a fucking software update, it's not even like a physical design thing. It's like just like a update. Are you kidding me?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think that's really.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Like, what?
Yeah,
give it to everybody.
That's a tricky problem. And then it also kind of starts to play into these other moral questions of how does our software protect our customers versus the external world? So self-driving cars, would you ride in a self-driving car company if there's like a taxi company that was known to give preference to pedestrians or other people on the road instead of you in a life-threatening event? So it would choose to kill its passengers instead of choosing to kill a pedestrian if it had to make that decision.
That's insane. That's like that's kind of like an organ donor type question, but way crazier. Like if it's a fatal situation, you could plug in the equation and be like, well, if it's one person, they die. If it's two people, I die, and any more than that. Is that sort of the thing you're starting to say?
Exactly. And MIT produced a website where they propose these questions to you. If you're interested, just Google MIT self-driving car quiz. It'll come right up. And it asks you, it goes through a series of like 20 ethical questions, and it shows you pictures, and maybe there's 4 passengers in the car and they're all women. And then there's 4 men on the street, all same age. Well, who should die here? What should the self-driving car decide to do? Or there's a baby on the road in a stroller, but there's 6 people in the car. And it lets you decide, what would you do? Who should die? And there's like a barrier that is in the road that is unexpected or something like that. So how should the car react? Who should potentially be put at risk and die? And
this is insane.
Those are questions that we're really going to have to answer and figure out. That there has to be a process for figuring that out and deciding how to proceed.
Could everything slow down, but then sometimes be just way faster?
Now, what do you mean by that?
I don't know. Like speed limit 25 miles per hour if you're in the proximity of any other car. Or wait, no, I don't know. Sorry, I was trying to figure it out.
Well,
people probably already. I haven't really thought of. I got to be honest. Like self-driving cars are not interesting to me in general, just because I don't like cars. But when you're talking about them now, I'm interested in it all, like all like the background of like the artificial intelligence, like basically getting a body through these cars, and that's interesting. But yeah, just cars in general, I'm like, ew.
Yeah, right. I'm
I guess I'm not a
trying
car
to.
guy.
Yeah, you're definitely not a car guy. Like the least car guy I know.
Like when people talk about Teslas, I'm like, yeah, they don't even look that cool. I gotta be honest. Like actually, the Model X looks. Was that the one with like the bat wings? The
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I gotta be honest, that one does look cool, but I just think it could be cooler. I don't know. I guess people need to look modest too. You know, it's like the Taurus.
Well, those Model X is really cool too because they have I think they got the first perfect safety rating because you can't roll them over. I think it's because the batteries in them sit so low, it just holds all the weight low. So they have like a really good safety rating. I mean, if I had the money, shit, I'd buy one of those. Those are
They look cool. I mean, and the automatic driving, just like cool. Who
yeah,
wants to drive for real?
right, exactly.
I guess some people love it still.
Well, I think we'll see all kinds of interesting new uses for the car, like parking lots. Do we need those anymore? If everyone's just going to be taxied around by self-driving cars, maybe this is 20 years out, something like that, but still something to start thinking about.
Yeah, I mean that's cool. I think that's gonna be cool if there's like you know a thing where nobody really owns cars. I guess.
Right. Well, and then that's going to be a problem because everyone wants to travel at the exact same time of day, we're going to need a hell of a lot more cars for that peak time that maybe happens at 9 and 5.
Maybe they could just be big cars shaped like trains.
That's a great point. That's another idea I've heard is that on highways, if we have self-driving cars, they could theoretically ride just inches apart from each other and
Yeah.
utilize the aerodynamic benefits and really make like a car train and save a ton of energy.
Yeah, that seems like the most obvious thing to do with that sort of like network of cars talking to each other is be as aerodynamic and like fast as possible, I guess.
Yeah, why not?
No,
The other
that's cool.
I'm looking forward to is renting an RV or like a moving hotel room and just ride around the country or the
Oh
continent.
shit, that's so cool actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have to really because like, I think that's when I like cars, I will become a car guy. As long as like the energy is renewable, as long as I know I'm not like fucking everything up at the same time, I'll 100% be a car guy. I'll cruise the highways of America in my autonomous automobile. Definitely.
Well, that's another thing we really need to figure out. All of our problems kind of go away as soon as we figure out energy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you figure out clean energy or some type of free, limitless energy, like the elusive fusion, cold fusion energy, every single problem kind of melts away.
Dyson sphere. Dyson sphere. I just want to build a Dyson sphere.
I heard if you use nuclear energy for the lifetime of a human, the amount of waste that would produce would fit in the size of a soda can. So when I hear stuff like that, I say, bring the nuclear energy to us. Let's do this.
Yeah, I think we'll find somewhere to put that stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
gosh. I think we figure something out. I don't know. I mean, it's probably be putting it off into the future, and we'll be like fucking ourselves then.
Right.
But I mean, that's what we've always done, and we could just do the best we can to like not do that again. You know that one thing they were talking about. Have you ever heard that problem they were trying to solve about how to mark the sites for nuclear waste dumps so that like any potential future human could understand the sign and know like this is a bad zone. You don't want to hang around here.
Oh my gosh, no! I think I've seen this, but I forget what it looks like.
I actually don't know what it looks like. there's like all kinds of proposals. Let me actually Google it really quick. Future nuclear symbol sign. I don't know. There's like a podcast about it.
That's a tough Google.
A nuclear. Oh yeah.
Got it?
Hyperallergenic. Oh yeah. There's like a illustration of like this thing that's like a landscape of thorns, and it's like a spike field. It's a field of like concrete spikes, and they're just trying to like symbolize danger with that. It's sort of like a sculpture garden.
That doesn't sound good enough.
Well, our current signs are just, there's a current sign that's like a weird nuclear sign, like the classic nuclear sign, like a peace sign. I don't really know how to describe it.
She just booby trap it.
There's like a skull and crossbones and a figure of a human running in a direction and an arrow.
Just do like temple, the Indiana Jones. Like a guy running away from a boulder.
I think that the spikes are a pretty good idea, I think. But
it makes me think of like something they put where they don't want people to skateboard or like.
Yeah, exactly. They're really tall though. They're like 12 feet tall. They look like thorns coming out of the ground.
That's kind of a good idea, actually.
Barbs, sort of.
That sounds pretty smart.
Yeah, I mean, you would get cut. They're pretty sharp. I don't know if these are I don't know. Kind of a good idea, but yeah, it's an interesting problem is like, what do you do with the waste? And like, where are we going to put it? I guess we could find somewhere that, if you throw that soda can, what is the nuclear waste? What do you call it? Just nuclear waste or spent uranium?
Yeah, exactly.
Could we throw it into the sun?
I think maybe, but I think that's hard to do. I think for some reason that's hard to do. Or
what?
Like, I could be wrong. No, maybe it's not that hard. I don't know.
Just seems like a kind of good idea. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that could work.
The sun is humongous. Have you ever seen the scale of the sun to the Earth?
It's
real?
Really big. It is. Yeah, I've seen those images.
It's kind of terrifying.
I mean, I used to camp in Florida in the Everglades. You used to live in Florida, I think, right?
Yeah.
And when I was camping there, it's hard not to imagine the sun as God. It just rules everything. Like the whole environment, atmosphere, your mood, everything that's going on around you is regulated by that. And the sun is the thing out of pretty much everything else that's allowed all that to be there. I can't really think much more of an idea of a god. Like, no wonder the Egyptians thought that was God.
Yeah. Ra, right?
Ra.
No, yeah, and like we are like plants, like how they're like subject to like the sun when they flowers close up at night. We're totally like attached to the sun in that way. Like that's why they have all these filters on our phones now to cut out the blue light and to do all these like things, because we're fucking it up because we're not being tied to our God, the sun, enough.
Seriously, yeah, you're right. Oh man, there's probably so many ways we're screwing ourselves over.
Like we talk about like streetlights being bad for like sea turtles and insects and stuff, because up until like the last 100 years, the only thing light at night was the moon. And
right.
A lot of things navigated that way.
Oh man.
It's insane. Like there's this bioluminescent worm. I forget where it was, but they can you can like set your watch to when these things start bioluminescing. Like on this one, like 2 days after a full moon at exactly this time, like by the second, these worms just start geeking out, and it's like they've just charged up. Just like it's crazy. It's because like the sun and the Earth's rotation is their clock that they've just like used as like something. It's their dependable environment, something that they can depend on. And yeah, our phones, just like those those freaking sea turtles and the bugs. Our phones are effing us up too.
Well, you know, there's so many things we're doing right now that are probably so bad for us, like the way that our diets are and the way we sit all day at freaking computers, stare at TVs, and what that does to our eyes. And we have music on our ears half the day. And oh man, we're going to be so screwed when we're old.
Yeah, I gotta believe the sepia tone filter is doing something. Do you think it's working? Do you have it running on your phones?
Yeah, it runs on my phone, but God, I mean, even just the psychology of being connected to other people all day long, like we're not designed to be like that. I'm pretty sure. I think you know a more easygoing, natural existence is kind of maybe more akin, or at least face-to-face socialization instead of this weird digital 0 and 1 binary socialization, like or not like. Like, oh man, it's not nuanced nearly enough to be healthy. I feel for us, especially at such a big scale as like a large experiment on a generation of people, or at this point, really getting to be multiple generations. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully, we learned something from it. And it's not all bad too. You can use any tool for good. I think more and more I start to hear that um, people are like trying to find ways to stay away from their phones. You hear about these apps trying to limit your time with your phone, but also my sister's in teaching, and she says a lot of these kids are just glued to their phones, and the first thing they do in the morning when they wake up is text all their friends, start Snapchatting with their friends. I'm sure you could talk about it, Ryan. And it just, I'm not convinced that's a healthy way for humanity to grow into. I'm just not sure. I personally don't really interact with social media, so I maybe don't have the best picture of it, but it does seem like a risky experiment to take on so many lives and people, and just such a big part of their everyday lives.
Yeah, I think they thought they were doing a good thing. And I think some people thought they were doing a good thing, and some people just didn't care and thought like, this is the market and the market is God, sort of like,
Yeah.
these people are customers, like get as much time and money as you can from them. If they fall for it, they're suckers, and that's Darwinism or whatever.
Well, part of the horrible trick of it all is that these are free services, and people are a little bit harder to see that they are the product, and their data is being consumed on massive, massive scales, and in probably ways that would surprise them, like maybe even down to how their mouse cursor is moving across the platform, and their systems might be learning from that, or kind of judging people's emotional response to different images and showing people different images based on how they're responding. It can get into some pretty dark areas quickly.
Yeah, it's really, yeah. I mean, I agree. It's crazy. I just feel like they need to be more transparent about it, allow more third party research into like what's all going on, because like I have like you said, any tool can be used for good. Like it might be pretty bad right now, but I've got to believe that there's something inside there that's like, when we really come to terms with what connection with the entire world at any moment, at any instant is, I think maybe we'll like adjust to it. I think we're really just seeing like the initial impact and like the scatter of, this is just chaos kind of.
Well, yeah, it is chaos, and when I see like China using social scores to make real impacts on people's lives, I think it's just a terrible slippery slope that is just full of nightmares that in horrible ways that it could go. And I hope it doesn't go that way. But um, or you see like the Black Mirror episode with the social scores, where people, I don't know if you saw this, but
Yeah, I did. Nosedive.
yeah, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's everybody cites this. Everybody's like,
Yeah,
it's
so
just like
that's
real life.
yeah, right. I know it's kind of cliche at this point,
Nah,
but
it's good because like you need really. I mean, the episode was good. I thought it was like kind of like a little corny, but like I'm like totally into this shit, so of course I'm gonna think it's corny. Like I think for everyone else in the world, it was like, wow, this is opening up my eyes to what I'm actually doing in my real life.
well, it really will just continue to transform our lives in more profound ways. I think about AR, augmented reality,
Yeah,
and like maybe we start hiding truths that are hard for us to endure or see. Like maybe there's just someone you hate and you just don't want to see them ever again. So you have your augmented reality just blur them out of the scene or something to that effect.
yeah, that was on a different Black Mirror episode. I don't know if you saw, probably right.
I've seen. Is it the one where they're like fighting people in the military?
Nah, there's just like a one where like a couple break up and like she blocks him so she can't see him in public, and all of his like sounds coming out of his mouth are just like oh rah, 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 rah.
Really, I didn't see that. I'll have to watch that.
So yeah, you could block people. I don't. You just probably just Google that description. And it'll be like, yeah, this episode. But yeah, it's a classic one too. And you're just like, yeah, that could be a thing, and it would really suck. It definitely explores that idea deep. So you'll be psyched, I guess.
Oh, cool. I'll have to watch it. Yeah. I'm
Um,
so scared of Black Mirror. I probably should watch them because I might be talking about things in these episodes, but oh man, they always freak me out. Like they always find a way to push a few buttons that haven't been pushed on me yet, and I get a little more creeped out by all the technology.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I've watched every episode, and I had to say like the most horrifying scene in any movie or TV show ever was in that show for me, for sure.
Whoa,
Did
what
you
episode was it?
the Christmas episode?
I don't think I saw it.
Oh my god. It was with John Hamm of Mad Men fame.
Yeah.
John Hamm, he was basically like, so the premise is like you make a copy of your brain and then you make that your Siri of your life. And then because you would organize your life best. But so right when you duplicate yourself, you're inside the computer and you don't believe you're a duplicate. And John Hamm comes in and he tames you and turns you into the perfect slave for yourself. And he does this by like, I'm sorry if any this is giving away Black Mirror, but I have to tell you the most horrifying scene in my life, and I think, but
Okay, sure.
yeah, like he, okay, I won't say the exact thing, but I'll describe around it. Maybe I will. But so like
Okay.
initially, this
Okay.
the scene is this woman clones herself, and she doesn't believe John Hamm or whatever. She's like, nah, I'm not gonna set my calendar dates. I'm not gonna make toast. I'm not gonna be like this person's robot assistant. And then John Hamm does this thing where like time moves for her a billion times slower. And so like he takes a bite of toast and it's been like 2 weeks for her. And she's been alone in like an empty room by herself, like isolation, just going back to the theme of feralness and like being alone, being like the worst thing for people. Like people say solitary confinement is one of the most unethical things you can do for a person. And so she's alone for 2 weeks. She like rebels again. He gives her like a month or something, and she's like, I'll do whatever. That was torture, being alone. But yeah, abuse of like an intelligence's sense of time is what happens in this scene later in that episode. Just basically abuse. Like once we can maybe clone our brains, or if we're like part, or like I don't know, cyborg or whatever, if we can change our perception of time, like putting someone in isolated solitary confinement for like, think about the possibilities with just like code. And like time being a thing that's just a code, an idea of processing speed or whatever.
The tick rate of our processors.
So, okay, I didn't give away the most horrifying secret. That's about that.
Dang, that sounds crazy. I don't know if I can watch that. That sounds rough.
So, did you want to talk about quantum computers?
Oh, quantum computers are pretty interesting.
Because I feel like you were going on this binary thing.
Let's talk about it.
Because we talked on the phone for like 30 minutes in between this, and we were talking about quantum computers a little bit. And I was just talking about binary stuff, just like a binary world, whatever. But I wanted you to explain them to me just to make sure I understand them, because I understand quantum physics a little bit. I understand quantum entanglement and some of the ideas of like it's just like a cloud of potential until you observe it and then it's somewhere. I understand that basically, but how do you take those and turn them into a computer?
Okay, so you kind of touched on it. In classical computing, it's binary, 0, 1, on or off. It's just controlled with gates, simple switches. In quantum computing, we're able to start solving problems that classical computing probably couldn't ever do by, instead of just having 0 and 1, we have a series of probabilities. So quantum computing takes use of quantum entanglement and superposition, two quantum properties. Entanglement is when I'm not going to explain this right. Two quantum particles essentially are linked together across a vast distance, and they basically, when one is turned on, the other is turned off, and it can happen over a large distance instantaneously. And I think they've done this over like continental scales. They've been able to, and theoretically, it should be able to happen across the universe instantaneously. And that unfortunately doesn't mean we can send information with that because of some other quantum problems that, if you're interested in, read more. But it doesn't seem like we'll be able to have instantaneous communication, unfortunately.
I really thought we could. We were talking about this earlier, and I was like, I thought I figured this out. That we could make some sort of quantum FaceTime call using each pixel as a quantum particle entangled with its brother particle somewhere else. Somehow it's not possible. It's a really kind of not fun answer. So but I guess you can't.
As of right now, my understanding is it's not going to be possible. You want to have some hope, and the scientists have always been proven wrong. I like this idea that scientific truth is relative to space and time. So I think that kind of our truths can fluctuate and change a little bit as we understand things differently. But the other quantum property is superposition, and this is where a quantum particle can have a wave of probabilities of where the particle actually is at any given moment. And so a quantum computer will, in some way that is complete magic to me, but is not to other smart humans, is not that I'm in that category, is that the superposition and the entanglement output a probability. So we can start to measure problems with probabilities instead of true or false. And that is a huge leap in solving some problems that we currently can't solve with classical computing. However, like these quantum computers are super, super sensitive. They need like a vacuum area with very, very low temperature. I think they're near absolute zero. And they just live in a very specific, sensitive box. It almost looks like an old mainframe computer from the 50s. That houses maybe like 10 qubits or something like that. But the computing power contained in that is just massive if we can figure out how to
Um,
unlock it correctly.
did the stuff that did they calculate shit on it? Like, but like, my
Yeah,
question is it
so
all
part
theoretical stuff
of
right now, like just sort of testing out the gear, or is there a question right now in the world that it's like this is the first thing we do on a quantum computer?
um so I think there are like problems like maybe like weather or um, other large probability scale problems, maybe like economic problems or yeah, just anything with kind of like large scale dynamics might be really good for quantum computing. However, right now, we're just, as far as I understand, we're just trying to get the technology to be stable so that it produces consistent results. And we're also still trying to find ways to apply these theoretical basically in a practical way. And I don't think it's really been done yet. And then how do you serve that up to companies or people who want to access your API, like in the cloud, really? It's like, how do I deliver that quantum compute capability to customers around the world via the internet?
So it has no. Its real world applications are still theoretical. It's
Yes, as
like I
far as
watched
I
that movie with
understand.
freaking Cumberbatch about the first computer. Do you see that one?
Oh,
Yeah,
is it about Alan Turing? Cool. I don't think I've seen it, but Alan
yeah.
Turing's
So
awesome. I
that
love
movie,
Alan
you should
Turing.
watch it. It's cool, like seeing like what they thought it looked like because they had to. It was like okay, so guys, it was the first kind of the first computer, I guess. It was to break the code of the Enigma code
The
of
Enigma code.
Nazi communication.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
and so
Nazi
like
community.
this whole
Yep,
thing was like
exactly.
theoretical for so long. He's like, I could build this thing that'll crack the code, and they're like, you're not gonna do it. And they kept pulling his resources and stuff, and then finally, like his computer worked, and he cracked the Nazi code, and it kind of won the war. It did win the war if you really think about it. And
Yeah, it
they
did.
he was a gay guy, so they made him like I think they was like chemically castrated or something. Yeah, towards the end of his life, he was
Yeah, I
chemically
think something
castrated because he
horrible
was
like
like
that.
gay. So that's bad. And but anyway, I guess what I'm saying is there hasn't been a Enigma code moment for quantum computing yet, a real world application.
That's right. That's exactly right. I think we're making progress, but nothing real big
That's
yet.
I thought there would be some example, but maybe not. I can't wait for the results.
Yeah, it's going to. It really could change the world once we learn to harness it better. It's going to be very interesting to
Yeah,
watch that unfold.
the thing I was saying about that was just like I feel like I read this article and I kind of just know, just from like being around how brains used to be compared to watches. Like your brain's just like a bunch of cogs, and this leads to this, and that's that. Because like we have watches, and they're pretty complicated, and we were like, well, that's the most complicated thing I've ever seen. So that's probably what my brain is like. And then that moved on to like computers when computers came out, and now people are saying our brains are more like networks because like network science is like that's kind of like artificial intelligence, right? So
Yeah,
basically, all
networks.
the,
Yeah.
the latest tech of any time is used to define the brain because it's the most complicated thing we have. And so, yeah, that's one thing I worry about, and why I feel like right now maybe we're a little bit rigid societally because our metaphor for the brain has been computers for a bit. And those are kind of like you said, mechanical, rigid. There's no room for error. It's like it's kind of beautiful in that way. And because human beings are maybe more, like we were saying, more subtle than that, that's what excites me about quantum computing, not only as a technology but also as a metaphor, so that once people understand how they work, they can apply that metaphor to different places in their lives. It might be useful to like help us think about ourselves, like tell stories about ourselves and stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm really interested in how, like, the scientific theories of the time or the scientific movements of the time influence our ethics and philosophies and how we're viewing the
Hmm.
world or interpreting the world. And I think like at a philosophical level, technology influences us. It kind of makes me think of, did you hear about the artist or the rich art collector who has apparently rented out the first space flight on the SpaceX trip that's going to go behind the dark side of the moon and come back? And he's giving out, I think, 7 slots
Oh yeah, yeah,
to
I did.
artists.
No.
So if you're going to apply, and he will maybe select you to go on this trip so that you can express your experience through art about how
Hmm.
the moon trip went back to the world. So yeah, and so like technology, influencing art, or I mean that's
Yeah,
kind of my
and
wheelhouse. I
the
love that
crazy
stuff
part
too.
is too is yeah, I just think like you were saying, I think metaphors, we see the world with like our anticipations, like when we can't conceive, like we use the watch because that's all we had. But and I do wonder, like, if we will start thinking of our own brains as like, oh yeah, no, actually they're more like quantum computers, dude. So like this, and I've actually read like an entire book by this guy named Miguel Micheleles, who had this, like, he was like, here's why Ray Kurzweil will never clone the brain, because the brain does these like electromagnetic pulses that are like more of a chance thing, like more serendipitous wave interaction thing. And so it's already happening. And it sounds like when you were describing
Hmm.
quantum computers, it kind of sounded similar. So like, I'm not going to be surprised if when quantum computers are like really kind of figured out, people are like, oh, that's what you got to make the cyborg section of your brain out of. Because that's the closest thing to a brain that we think
Yeah, I
a
mean,
brain is.
right. Yeah, there's got to be some quantum stuff happening in our brains. I'd be
Yeah.
surprised if there wasn't.
Um, but yeah. Um, but yeah, whether or not they do act, like the brain is like, I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe they finally found the right one. um, but I'm excited about the metaphor too, just because of the idea of like, because it's not 0 or 1. It's like a cloud of potential. I think that basic thought in
Yeah,
itself will be so useful to people, our culture. When we see them working that way, and we see, I don't know if it, like you're saying, we have no practical application, but I guess when we see the way they work, and then we like learn about how they work, that understanding of that problem will apply everywhere. That will like tune our anticipations of what to look for.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to that too. It's always really interesting to see the different ways that and there's so many unexpected things that can come out of it. And for me, that's almost one of the biggest joys of living is like, oh, let's see what happens. This is great, like how can we help influence what's happening right now? And just even in a little way, like what can we do to uh, make sure that the future's good? Plant a tree or some shit like that. Who cares? I think it's exciting. Like what can the future hold? I've always been more interested on the past and the future than I am in the present. I think in some ways, and maybe
Yeah,
that's
me
not a
too,
good
kind of.
thing,
I
but
mean, I'm interested in the present because like that's where we can take action, I guess. I guess that's where like you can butterfly affect something. But yeah, it is interesting to just like, I definitely get caught up in the past and the future too much.
yeah,
You
yeah.
ever meditate,
I
bro?
mean, I guess balance in all things. Of course,
Are
yeah.
you
I love
disciplined about
meditating.
it?
I think it's great. I think
I don't know. Like, do you have a
define
schedule?
disciplined. I usually just do it every day before I get in the shower, something like that. Something like
How
that's
long
going to
is it?
happen on the schedule anyway. Just like even if I can
That's
get
not too
8 minutes
much.
in, I'm happy. Something to just sit down for. I don't go too crazy with it,
Whoa.
but I try and do
Yeah,
it
so
twice
you
a day.
definitely have a meditation diet.
Yeah, I mean it ebbs and flows, I think, with maybe the seasons or what's going on in my life. But yeah, I really enjoy it. I think it's just healthy to take a minute and sit.
What does it feel like? What do you think is happening in your mind? Do you have any like ways that you like when you just think about your brain and what you're doing, how do you envision what's happening?
Um, well, I just try and have a lot of um like compassion for my thoughts and like also not just kind of let them float by. I think is
Yeah, but
I've
I
kind of
guess
been told to
you're
do
saying
that, so
how to
that's what I
meditate, which is like, yeah, basically like overwhelm your senses with like sounds and feelings in the present moment so that you basically live in the moment, overwhelm the rest of your brain that's like has this background chatter with just like momentary data with in the moment data. So I don't know, I guess it's just refreshing. That's how I think of it whenever I'm doing it.
Do you do like a mantra or I usually just focus on my breath. Is just like try and almost
You
look
opening
at
your
my
eyes?
breath as it happens.
Oh, okay.
Nope,
Oh,
my third eye,
I
I'm
have a
looking at my
visual graph that represents my breath, but it's not my lungs or anything. If
huh.
you
Piece of
wait,
paper or is
what?
it in your mind? Is that visual graph on a
It's
piece
in
of
my head.
paper or
When I
is it
first
just in your
started
head?
learning how to meditate, I don't know. For some reason, I thought I had to imagine it, but it's pretty much like if you can imagine. Um, Let me think of the shapes. Snickers bar size wooden pillars. Got them? Imagine in your mind a
What are you
Snickers
talking
bar
about? Okay.
size rectangular prism. And imagine 8 of those
Okay.
stacked in a row with their faces, like Snicker bar top to top. And then imagine like the middle one raises up and then they all follow and then come to like an alignment. Or no, they don't come to alignment. It just goes to an arch. And then the other ones snap up and then the middle one snaps back down. I'd have
I might need that, John. I don't.
maybe I'm gonna
That's hard
maybe
to picture for me. Like a shape looks like
I guess
like
just
a ice cream
imagine
cone.
like a line and then imagine it growing a hump and then imagine that it's like a blanket and then the blanket sort of like loses air from the center outward and so the edges sort of puff out.
Huh.
So what is your visual?
Okay. Um, I just like I just try and like look at the breath like right outside my nose. Just like look at that point and just watch the air move and do it all in my head.
Does it look different in your head or does it look like real life?
I mean, you just kind of like it's not even really a visual. It's more just like the sensation. It's just like focusing on your
Yeah,
breath essentially.
I guess I inject my breath into the animation of these blocks and that focusing on the animation of those blocks moving actually helps me. I don't know why. Like I was trying it other ways for a while, but it wasn't working. I brought back the blocks. I was like, let's throw the blocks back into the mix, and I was like, this was the good meditation. So I guess I needed those blocks.
Oh man, you should draw this. It's hard to
All right,
picture.
I'll draw it. I'll draw it. I'll show you.
Draw it.
I could do an animation of it if I really wanted.
Nice.
Um,
Ooh, yeah, now we're talking.
um, So yeah, what do you? But I guess I was asking, what do you feel like like if you had to describe it in almost like it was a like your digestive system, like with benefits of eating fiber or whatever. What do you feel like you're doing if you were like a scientist describing the neurological benefits? Yeah, what are you imagining?
A
Like, what do you
meditation.
picture? Like, I feel like everybody has their own kind of story that they think it's doing, right?
Oh, I really like the analogy of muddy water being cleared by allowing to sit for a few minutes, and that silt settles to the bottom, and you're just left with clear water at the top. I think that's about what
Whoa.
it's
So
like for
what's the
me.
silt?
The silt is maybe just thoughts, just like a running mind of thoughts. So as I am able to just sit there, um, all of those thoughts kind of sift through and they're able to go through all my neurons, maybe. I don't know what's happening. And it kind of settles after a little while of sitting. And I come out of it just in a little more clear headspace and just feel energized and refreshed and um, not as consumed by thought,
It,
really.
it it's like a purification, would you say?
Absolutely.
It's weird.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a little filter for your mind.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to go way, I can't go far into what I guess I think that is. I feel like that's just, you know how we were talking about anticipation, anticipating certain things, like when you expect
Yeah.
something, you look for it. Well, my thing I feel like I'm doing is like basically like you said, almost a purification so that those assumptions get more dull. And maybe you get, when you're moving around and interacting in the world, something more akin to assumptionless, like trying to see the world for the way it is rather than with these assumptions. I feel like that's, if I had to say what the silt is, it's like you're talking about like dropping, I forget what the name of it is, but you're like the network that's always running in your mind. It's like this like circular thoughts like, oh, I got to pay that, and then I got to go there, and then I got to eat that, and then I got to do this, and it's like shutting that up so that maybe you get like, imagine being a baby, a baby is almost assumptionless, getting closer to, I don't know, not objective sensing, but in the direction of something more true and less, I don't know, psychotic and internal.
Yeah. Um, it's got to be something along those lines. It's interesting that it has such a history too, and is like Buddha, I guess is what I think of. Just this tradition of meditation passed down. There's got to be something to it for something to persist for so long through um, cultures and traditions. I feel like there's got to
Yeah.
be something there.
It is really hard though, would you admit? I guess, how long have you been doing it?
Um, I probably on and off for about
Wow.
6 years, 7 years, but I am not consistent. I have not definitely not done it
Mm-hmm.
every single day for 7 years. Like not even half that time, but it's great because it's kind of the type of thing where maybe you need it more at a certain point in your life, and that is totally okay. It's really easy to pick up and sit down if you do it that way. I mean, ideally I'd be doing it every day, but you know that's another thing it kind of teaches you, is just like give yourself some grace, like show yourself compassion. It's okay to just take it as you need to take it. It's not, you don't have to be hard on yourself with your practice of meditating. I feel like that's totally counterintuitive.
Yeah. I got that app Headspace. It's not an app, but I got that app Headspace to do it, and the call cut off for a sec.
I just wanted to hear that. Oh,
It's just one. I just literally just laid my fingers down in a random spot. And I'm like, that's probably a shape that would work. Okay. Maybe
it's
we talked
great.
about meditation too long anyway, so it's okay. The call dropped.
Call dropped
You
call.
know, I can't blame them. Anchor stores this in the cloud, and like I feel like I would mess up more than it would if I was recording this on my own, like on my computer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variables that they have to deal with. You can't be too hard on them, I guess.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. They lost one episode one time, and I was pretty salty. It was when this feature just came out, though, so I can't blame them.
Well, yeah, that's kind of, I would be salty too. They should have.
It was a good
That's
combo.
bullshit. That's bullshit, man. Gone forever.
They're getting really big, represented real big right now. Apple just made a commercial just featuring their app like only using
Really?
the iPad Pro as like a stop shop studio for podcasting. Here's how you do it. It's really slick. Anchor.
Anchor.
They might. I think that they may rise. It may be on the rise.
Anchor's on the rise. Buy their stock, kiddos.
This is not an ad, but you can monetize it. Like I could flick a switch and then just like record an ad, and then it's just like, all right, you have ads now.
Let's do it.
It is a really good app, I gotta say. Mostly,
It is pretty good so far, other than the 3 problems that we've had.
yeah, but these are long calls, right?
They're long calls.
I guess I never
dying.
talk to anybody on the phone normally, so I don't actually know if calls drop that often.
I don't usually talk that much on the phone either, I gotta admit.
So I don't know what to expect.
This is the longest phone call I've ever had, and it's not a phone call.
It's a phone pod. I don't know what to call these. What do you think? Unedited phone calls, like, should they have a new name other than podcast? This is a subcategory.
I liked phone pod.
Phone pod.
I liked it. I think it could go to Hollywood.
All right. Any more topics that we need to talk about? We could do another one in a certain amount of time.
We could do another one.
Like,
yeah, that'd be fun.
Let some time pass, and like now that we've had this, we're probably gonna recount this conversation in our heads like a billion times and be like, "Oh, I didn't say that," or like, "That was stupid." And then
definitely
that might lead to like, "Oh, we gotta talk about this and this."
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Let's do it. I think there's tons to talk about. There's so much to talk about, like music and art and society, and I think there's a lot of fascinating things to talk about here.
Right?
Transhumanism.
I don't like the idea that I was ever a transhumanist, like very proudly, but I really do think you have to sort of think of people through their lens, but like, I don't know, just not as utopian, I guess. I don't know. More subtle. That's the key word, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. More subtlety, more nuance, more quantum, less binary.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway. Neural nets on the upcoming.
Yeah. All right. I guess I should play his keyboard.
Yeah, that's going to be the best way to end this.
All right. I'm going to try to do good.
All right.
Do you want to like shout out any like social medias?
Yeah. Hit me up.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. I got to turn this down. Nah. Wait, what?
All right. Oh, should I? Oh, I thought I was going to talk over the music.
You were, but it was like maybe you're cutting out. Hold on. Try to do it. I can't. I'm sorry. I got to turn the keyboard off because I think that the battle between my side and your side is like whoever's is louder, and mine's always louder.
That's too bad because I was making fun of. I was making old jokes that my old AIM instant messenger named Ronjon2128.
Oh, hit him up on AIM, Ronjon.
Runjohn2128. Yeah, that's about it. That's my only social media platform is AIM Instant Messenger.
Hit me up on Rara1414. Also, for a while, hate the retinue. I think I was umbilical cord too for a while.
Cord was a good one. That was a fair one. That's fair.
And I feel like you changed it to opening sound.
Yeah, that was in there for a while.
So
what else is there? Yeah. It's good to mix your usernames up. I've been looking for a drummer before, just looking, when I was looking for a drummer to play with. You got to take good use of the ability to create infinite usernames.
So what are you trying to say?
Get creative with your usernames. Get creative with your passwords. I want to see passphrases. I'm not interested in these short 1, 2, 3. I love, Tiffany. Don't give me that. Let's see. Zebras, wonderful. Pillow animal.
That's one
something like that is going to keep you secure. That's going to keep you secure. You're not going to forget that zebras are a wonderful pillow animal.
Phrase.
That's it. So it's a phrase. Let's get those passphrases in. If you kids want to be scared, watch a little YouTube video on cracking passwords. Any little hack kitty, script kitty can jump in there and crack your little 8-digit password in about 10 seconds. It's not that hard. It's seriously not hard. So get your passphrases, get a password manager. That's the moral of this whole talk.
No,
maybe
I
you
think
don't agree.
So. What do you think? You want them to get a password manager, or you don't even want that?
I like LastPass.
Yeah, I know people use that. I haven't used it, but I hear it's great.
Do you have one password for everything, or like two passwords?
I have like a sort of a system. I have a system. I can't talk about it, right?
I can't talk about it. I'd love to know, though. It's good to have a system.
It's definitely a system, and it's cool. To my own horn on my password. No, it's actually not that good, I'd say. It's okay. I think it's pretty good. I have no idea. I haven't asked anybody about it. I haven't gone to like a password doctor. What do you think, Doc? How do you like my lineup? All right. So we'll play this synth out, and we'll dip back into this convo in the future. If you liked it, leave a comment, or you can leave a voice comment on Anchor. That's another fun thing. Join freaking Anchor and leave me a voice comment. That's fun.
Give us one.
But probably nobody will do it, so whatever. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks, Nate. It was fun talking. I think we have so many more places to go.
Yeah, the future's bright. Keep your head up. Maybe don't cry.
Should I take it to the singularity?
Let's go to the singularity.
We'll see you next time on AI Armageddon Chitchat.